Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 4th of January. Today, bombshell documents relating to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released by a US court, with both Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton being named.
Tax cuts, maybe a new PM and a Farage comeback. We take a look at the pledges so far as the election year gets serious.
Teen sensation Luke Littler's incredible journey at the World Darts Championship ends with him losing a final showdown against Luke Humphries. Paul Coit has all the reaction.
You've pretty much said exactly what I was going to say. I've got nothing else to say. I mean, we could look at it two ways. We could say, like you said, that Luke Littler, the teen sensation, has lost, or the fact that Luke Humphries, the world #1, has won the World Championship for the first time. All the same, it was a fantastic event and everybody is all over it. And we've got some great ex-players as well. They're going to join us.
Lovely, Paul, thank you.
Now, why have a record number of sellers put their houses on the market? As banks continue to reduce their mortgage interest rates, we ask, is it all good news?
And with your weather today, here's Alex Deakin.
Drier, calmer, colder weather on the way for all of us over the next few days. But today, there is more heavy rain to tell you about across the far south. I'll have a full forecast later on.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Here's one for you. Have you got your Christmas decks down
Yes,
yet?
it came down the 2nd of Jan. I can't bear it to be up any longer.
Do they?
What about you?
Because 12th night is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's tomorrow.
Or is it Saturday?
Don't know. Anyway, so that's what I want to know. Have you done it yet? Normally we leave them off for quite a long time.
Do you?
This year we took them down on New Year's Eve.
Really?
Yeah, it was just like...
Oh,
right,
you just
so
got too much.
Want to start the new year fresh, clean, got rid of them all.
See, that's why I wait till the 2nd. I get New Year's Day out of the way because, you know, usually very hungover. Yeah. And the 2nd, I've had enough. They come straight down. It took me ages, though. It took me 2 hours to take down the tree because it's a fake one.
Oh.
Had to fold all the branches back in.
It takes a very long time.
Sit on it. Put it back in the bag.
But let us know if you've done that yet. And if not, why not?
Why not? Some people like to extend, don't they?
Yeah. We put ours up early,
going.
to be fair. We put them up early.
Yeah, you do. When do you start?
And last weekend in November.
Oh, you do go early. So no wonder you want
Yeah, we've had enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Let us know how it's looking in your house. They're all being packed away here in the studio, aren't you? Did you see that on the way in?
Yeah, I did, yeah. They're all out there, all with the lights off and the baubles off.
Quite sad, isn't it? It's like a Christmas tree
sad.
graveyard out there. They're all just lined up, looking very sad.
Never mind. We'll get them out again next year, or this year.
We're in January, aren't we?
Now, on with our top story this morning, because nearly 200 names associated with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released to the public by a judge in New York.
Yes, Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton are among those listed, though the former US president has not been accused of anything illegal. Lawyers for Prince Andrew have previously denied any claims of wrongdoing.
Well, the disclosures throw new light on the sex trafficking network, which was apparently directed by Epstein, who died in his prison cell in 2019, and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, who, of course, is currently serving a long jail term.
Well, joining us now to discuss this further is royal and showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield. Very good morning to you, Kinsey. So these documents were highly anticipated, weren't they? What have we learnt from them?
Absolutely. The documents contain excerpts of depositions taken of Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre. There's also a deposition from Joanna Sjoberg. Now, what kind of wreaked havoc over the last few hours here in the States were these three people that filed appeals. One was granted an appeal, and that was Jane Doe 107. Another that's filed an appeal is Jane Doe 110, and that's under review. These are individuals that do not want their names released, and they're not released in these documents that we've seen. Jane Doe 110 is said to have been widely associated with Epstein in the past, but filed a last-minute request to stay anonymous. They are described in court documents as an alleged Epstein affiliate, and they say they need to protect themselves for their safety. I'd say that no big bombshells. Obviously, you named Bill Clinton, who was mentioned in the documents. Stephen Hawking was mentioned in the documents. Nothing, I'd say, earth-shattering, but I should repeat that Ghislaine Maxwell continues to maintain her innocence throughout these documents being released through her lawyer. And Bill Clinton says that he had no idea of Jeffrey Epstein's activities, illegal activities, and insists that he just rode on the plane. He never visited the island.
I mean, it's caused a lot of controversy. I mean, as you said, been highly anticipated, the release of these names. But does it tell us anything new, really?
I think that maybe perhaps someone like Bill Clinton is being caught in a lie throughout these documents. People are being caught in lies. Like, did they necessarily really have closer relationships to Epstein than they initially said they did? But nothing jaw-dropping on my end. The Stephen Hawking thing, perhaps, but this is a morning show. This is a family show, so I won't go into depth.
Yeah.
And Kinsey, what do you think this means for Prince Andrew? I mean, he and Buckingham Palace deny any wrongdoing, but over Christmas we saw Fergie, didn't we, step out on that Christmas Day walk for the first time in 30 years. There are rumours of the two of them potentially getting back together. What do you think this means for him and the royal family?
An extremely uncomfortable time, because when documents like this are released, you know, it's like the worst game of telephone in the world. Somebody at the hair salon has misinterpreted a line or a television quote that they heard, and, you know, rumors just start going, and it becomes bigger than you want it to be. So I think that he's likely in a really uncomfortable position and wants this to go away. But we've seen the royal family really unite around him, and I think that we're going to continue to have the never explain, never complain, never explain strategy, and that they are going to continue to support him in the way that they do by just allowing him to hover around them.
OK, Kinsey, for now, thanks very much indeed. Now, as the new year is upon us, just in case you hadn't noticed, the 2024 general election campaign is, quite frankly, already getting underway.
Yes, Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer are set to launch their bids to convince the public to back the contest for number 10.
Yeah, they'll be giving their first speeches of the year later on today, and if those of the Liberal Democrats and Reform UK yesterday are anything to go by, well, the gloves are off.
24, the year the voters finally get to pack up this awful, out-of-touch Conservative government. Throw their disastrous policies into the skip.
Starmageddon is a risk near you in 2024. Prime Minister, you're not allowed to continue to run the country. You have failed. The Tories have become like the Labour Party, two sides of the same socialist coin.
See, it's very interesting, I think, that what Richard Tice is saying about Starmageddon. Well, of course, what a lot of the Conservatives are saying is, well, a vote for Reform UK is effectively a vote for Keir Starmer because it splits that vote to the right.
Is it a gift for the Labour Party, reform coming up through the tracks?
It could well be. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because you always get this with the smaller parties. You get it with the Lib Dems, saying, well, that splits the vote on whichever side they happen to be leaning to at that stage. It's very, very difficult to know how this is going to work out. I think it's going to be closer than people imagine, but...
I think it'll be quite interesting to see if we have a swing to the right, as we've seen in the Netherlands and we've seen in Argentina and across the world. I think it'll be very interesting to see how Reform does in the next general election. Apparently, in the opinion polls, they are around the same kind of space as the Lib Dems.
Yeah, they're sort of double figures now, which is... I mean, obviously, it's not enough to sort of really get anywhere and perhaps not even get an MP with that. Depends how it's split across the country. However, it might be enough just to cause significant problems for the Conservative Party. It's a really interesting one, how the SNP fare, of course, north of the border, is interesting, because if they do quite badly, then that's, very good for the Labour Party, getting enough seats to make a majority government in Westminster. There's a lot to go for, and there's a lot to talk about. However, are you already a bit fed up with it? Because it's the 4th of January. Now, the election soonest is going to be May, but may not be till the end of the year, may not be till January for next year. And so this is going to be a very long campaign, come what may. And I think we're all going to get a little bit fed up of it, aren't we? Is it going to turn us off? Is it going to stop you voting at all? Anyway, any thoughts on that? gbviews@gbnews.com. Love to know whether you're getting excited by it, whether you've had enough of it, if you've decided who you're going to vote for already. Are you going to wait and see what comes out?
And let us know what you want to hear as well. We're going to be hearing from Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer a little bit later on today. Rishi Sunak, we expect to talk a little bit about tax cuts. So Keir Starmer, I don't think we're going to expecting anyway to hear anything new, but do let us know what you would like to hear. What would get your vote? gbviews@gbnews.com.
Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning. And people in Liverpool were asked to stay home last night after an incident unfolded at a cinema where there were reports of a man brandishing a gun. Police cars, helicopter and armed police attended the Showcase Cinema in East Lancashire Road. Pictures on social media showed a large number of armed and local police officers in the area. Merseyside Police has called the incident fast-moving.
Nottingham hospitals have declared a critical incident, urging patients not to attend hospital unless it's an emergency. It's due to extreme pressure on services, with hospitals and A&E full. It comes as a number of hospitals have called on striking junior doctors to return to work due to patient safety concerns. 6 days of industrial action began this morning after talks between the government and the BMA union broke down.
The Princess Royal is making an official visit to Sri Lanka next week, marking 75 years of diplomacy with Britain. Princess Anne will be joined by her husband on a 3-day visit. It comes as the King and Queen are expected to head to Canada in May, followed by Australia, New Zealand and Samoa later in the year.
The Princess Royal can do no wrong, can she?
They do call her the hardest working royal. And I know a lot of people, especially she does a lot within the armed forces and the Blues and Royals, which she's silver stick of. And she is so well respected by the men and women that she leads in the Blues and Royals. So well respected.
Well, she leads by example, doesn't she? You saw her at Coronation, just absolutely wonderful on horseback.
Yeah, she's one of those. She got a lot of negative press back in the day, a long time ago, but she's really proved her mettle. And I tell you who I really like, which surprises me a little bit, is the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Because it's become apparent they've done a lot of work that has gone unnoticed, and now they're just getting on with it now within their new roles. And I think it's fantastic what
they've really
doing.
come into their own, haven't they? since passing Queen Elizabeth II. And for me, it was Sophie and how emotional she got, actually, after the passing of the late Queen. That was quite lovely to see.
It's how close they were and how close she was with Prince Philip as well.
Yeah, you can tell she really cares, doesn't she? And they care about the work that they do. And they do prove to be a very popular couple, actually. So I do think the royal family's in safe hands with the two of them.
Yes. Now, we were talking earlier on about this election year in politics. Quite what's going to be said today. We're going to hear from Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. But are we getting a bit fed up of it already? It's going to be a very long campaign. Our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, joins us now. Heck, I mean, we are going to be in for months and months of this, at the very least, Olivia. What are the two big leaders going to say today that's going to excite us, do we think?
Well, I think that one of the things which Keir Starmer is going to say is actually addressing what you're talking about there, which is voter apathy, people being fed up and wanting to stay at home. From what I've seen of the speech, it's going to be a sort of stirring address to the country, telling them that life can get better again and that they must hold on to that flicker of hope. His problem is not that people will turn out and vote Conservative, but that people may not turn out at all, that people are so fed up with Westminster, so fed up with politics, so exhausted at the idea even of a sort of 9-month general election campaign, that they just won't leave their homes on polling day. He's going to talk about the economy. He says he's not just ready to fight an election on the economy, he actually wants to fight an election on the economy. Traditionally, the Labour Party is stronger on issues like the NHS and public services. But when it comes to the economy, the Conservatives are more trusted. Keir Starmer wants to turn that on its head. And that might be doable, given that under the Tories now, people are facing the highest tax burden of 70 years. Keir Starmer is going to present himself as a centrist. He's been doing that for months now, really. He wants to show himself as sort of the heir to Blair, who can be trusted on issues of the economy. He might even perhaps reference tax cuts. There are rumours that he is keen to show that the Labour Party too is capable of cutting taxes. But I think what we're really expecting to see today, no particular new policies, just a message to the country to sort of hang in there and don't get so bored with politics that come election time they don't go out and vote.
We're also expecting to hear from Rishi Sunak today, aren't we, out and about in the East Midlands? We're not expecting a speech from him, per se, are we? It's more a question and answer session with members of the public.
Yeah, absolutely. There isn't a big New Year's speech with a journalist audience in front of him. Is that because last time he did that, he stood up in Stratford, I was part of the audience there, and he made those 5 pledges, and those 5 pledges have turned out to be a bit of a noose around his neck. Apart from cutting inflation in half, something which has unarguably happened, on all of those other pledges he seems to be struggling to make progress. Stopping the boats was one. Well, the Rwanda plan is still struggling its way through Parliament. There has been a reduction in the number of Channel migrants crossing, but unfortunately for Rishi Sunak, the public seems to be pushing that down to the weather rather than anything that Sunak himself has done. Growing the economy, well, the goal really has been trying to cut inflation. So although the OBR says that in the latter half of the decade the economy will grow, at the moment it isn't really growing. Cutting NHS waiting lists, arguably that's the one where he's failing most obviously. NHS waiting lists hit a high of 7.7 million a couple of months ago, and now junior doctors are on the longest strike in history. So it could be that Rishi Sunak just does not want to make the same mistake again. If you stand up on New Year and make some promises, then by the end of the year, people will be judging you on how you're doing, on delivering on those promises. So we're expecting a quieter Rishi Sunak today. The Conservative Party as a whole seems a little bit subdued going into 2024.
And we'll take a look at the Lib Dems as well, shall we, Olivia? We had Sir Ed Davey kind of throwing subtlety into the sea yesterday with a removal service for the Tories. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, Well, absolutely, yeah. I was down in Guildford with the Lib Dems yesterday. The subtlety has never been a strong point of the Lib Dems. They do like their stunts. And yeah, we saw Ed Davey driving through the centre of Guildford with a removals van. He wants to be the man who will be unseating I think he called it the Conservative MP unseating service by Ed Davey. And the Lib Dem activists I was speaking to there are very excited indeed. The Lib Dems have their eye on Guildford, which has a Tory majority of 3,300, but it also has its eye on all sorts of seats in the Surrey area, home county seats, which have traditionally been held by the Tories for, in some cases, decades. They've got their eye on Jeremy Hunt's seat and on Michael Gove's seat. And according to them and their numbers, it's looking pretty promising for them. This is really bad news for the Conservatives. There is an argument that over recent months, the Tory party has sort of resigned itself to the reality that it probably will lose quite a lot of seats in the Red Wall. Those are sort of traditional Labour heartlands where people were prepared to lend their vote to the Conservatives in 2019 because Boris Johnson was promising to get Brexit done. Most of them have pretty slim Tory majorities, most of them only elected in 2019, and the Tory party has basically accepted that some of those will probably go. But these blue wall seats, those Tory heartland seats, if the Tories start losing those, they could be in real trouble. And the Lib Dems look as though they might just be onto a winning strategy this time round. Traditionally, the Lib Dems are really, really good at fighting by-elections. They send all of their resources into one area. They focus everything on that one area. Got a lot of feet on the ground. That is their real strong point, sending around lots and lots of flyers, etc. And they tend to do very well. In general elections, they tend to do less well, and that's because they spread their resources too thinly. This time round, though, it looks as though they're going to be treating the general election as basically a string of by-elections in the southeast and southwest. And if they do that, that is bad news for Rishi Sunak.
OK, Olivia, thanks very much indeed. I just can't get over Ed Davey in his high-vis jacket yesterday.
Just loves a stunt, doesn't he?
They do like a stunt, which...
What was it previously?
Oh, there was something odd.
Like a
they were lighting
gun or something, shooting a gun.
It's
cannon. That's it. Shooting a cannon. Oh, there you go.
Cannon.
Get the clowns out of number 10. That's what it was.
They do like yeah.
It's attention, isn't it? That's what it is. That's what they need.
Well, yeah. Well, perhaps it works. Perhaps it works. I don't know. I like my politics a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
Somehow, I'm still not sure. You see quite what they stand for. At the moment, and we'll get clarity on that coming up to an election because we haven't got enough clarity. I don't think we've got enough clarity from any party.
Be quite nice
at the moment
to get some clarity.
Real clarity. We will do X, Y, and Z, and then at least you know what you're voting for.
Yeah. It's a lot of the time it's criticism, isn't it? Especially from the Lib Dems. It's criticism of both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party.
Well,
it'd be quite nice to hear what they've actually got.
Well, because criticism is easy. Let's have some answers, please.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want clarity, here's some clarity on the weather from Alex.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England, perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again, the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coast. But for many, Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
Now, lines for the Great British Giveaway close tomorrow, so don't miss out on your chance to win £10,000 cash, the latest iPhone and a £500 shopping spree. Get your entry in now, and here's how.
It's the final week to see how you could be the winner of the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to grab 3 amazing prizes. First, there's £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll receive a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And finally, we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in your favourite store. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Now, still to come, are the exams of the future all going to be online? We'll find out just what that could mean next on Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 6:26. Now, the days of going into an exam hall and putting pen to paper, oh, do you remember doing all that?
The fear.
Oh, anyway, could soon be a thing of the past.
Yes, from next year, English GCSE students will be able to sit on-screen tests with the exam board at Excel.
Now, this will be the first time that about 125,000 students across the UK will be given the option to take both English language and literature without pen and paper. Digital on-screen English GCSE exams will be offered by next summer.
So, is this the future? Is this the way that exams are heading? Well, joining us now to discuss this further is artificial intelligence expert and futurist Andrew Eamonn. Very good to see you this morning.
Lovely to see you both. Welcome back to both of you. Glorious. I like the dinosaur tie.
Thank you very much
indeed.
Very
good, very fetching.
I've always said we've got to embrace technology. It's crazy that we're basically doing things with pen and paper. Children can't write. Exams should be a test of their knowledge, not their ability to do exams. So what's happened is this new new way of doing things. They're saying that you can do on-screen, because most children, when they're doing these sort of things, that's what they're doing in the classrooms and so on and so forth. It begs, however, all sorts of questions. It's only going to happen in 2025 as the first one for English. It's still got to get Ofqual, the people who determine these sort of things, their approval to make sure it's fair. But also there are other questions as well, because not every child has access to a computer at home, which is really, really important. So you've got to get that balance. But I always say that you've got to look at the ways that you can embrace technology to make sure that we do that.
But are there concerns about the whole host of issues? One is, you think differently, don't you, when you put pen to paper? It's why I've got my pen, and I make little notes, and if I was doing this on my laptop, it doesn't go in my brain it doesn't sink in the same way.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. And people use their different senses for the way that you learn. Some people learn orally, they learn through sight, some by saying it out loud. I think the reality is exactly that. But you've got to work out, what are you actually testing? And that's what I say, it's going back to, are you testing their ability to take exams or the knowledge that they've learned? I actually think that we should revisit the whole of the exam system. I think that now with AI, artificial intelligence, writing first drafts of essays and passing all these exams, the way to test people is obviously through oracy. Get people standing up and explaining about something. Because nowadays, the biggest problem I've got is we've got more means to communicate with technology, but we're less able to communicate. You watch people, or kids sitting around now, you go to these great tourist attractions, they're all in their screens, they're not looking at the world and things like that. And I think, get your head up, have a look at that sort of stuff. The other thing is people can't write or spell. So my question about this online stuff is, does that mean they're going to do the spell checking as they're going along and all the words come out beautifully? Or you can actually write on that sort of basis?
It's a speed issue as well, isn't it, Andrew? I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was asked to type an essay, I'd find that a lot more difficult than writing one.
Yeah, I think...
But maybe this generation is different.
It's definitely a generational thing, and you can... The whole idea is about accessibility as well. The reason it's quite a small number, 125,000 or whatever it is to start with, is exactly that. It's about accessibility. People should be able to do exams in the usual sort of way, make that bit easier. Also, what's not very clear, and it was embargoed, you think, oh, I get so excited when you see it. No, you can't talk about this until early this morning, so this is the first time that people are hearing about it. What I love about it is you need to dig a bit deeper, and I went to Pearson's website, and what they're saying is that you go to a special place to do this exam. It's the same exam conditions, they're going to be watching you and so on and so forth. There are exams already which happen where you can do remotely, and you can have your camera on so they can make sure you're not cheating, and you do it on that sort of basis. The good thing about that, it makes it more efficient. So you're turning around, you can probably tell people they've passed as soon as they've finished the last note.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite trust it if people could do it remotely.
Well, it depends on how...
You could have another laptop in the background or something, couldn't you?
And that's the problem. So you've got to look at those sort of things. I think going forward, I would abolish all exams. I like the idea... I like the idea of continual assessment. If you wake up one morning and you're lousy, you've done 3 hours work, 3 hours year's work, and it's then whittled down to 3 hours and how you feel that particular morning, I think that's unfair. And there have been all sorts of episodes where basically people aren't on their best performance.
We moved to... I know I'm going to be getting yelled at because we're running out of time. Our invigilators getting angry with
Yes.
But there was a move towards more continual assessment 10, 15 years ago. The problem with that is it was a lot of parents helping out the kids.
Yeah, well, I think that's why I go back to the idea of oracy. I don't mind people learning whatever you learned on that sort of stuff, then get the child to go into school and talk about it, because that's a skill that people are losing. People's ability to communicate has been whittled away as a result of technology.
Okay.
You haven't lost it, Andrew.
I thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much. Now, the time is 6:31. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie, and here's a reminder of our top stories. Bombshell documents relating to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released by a US court, with both Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton being named.
Tax cuts, maybe a new Prime Minister, and maybe a Farage comeback. We're going to take a look at the pledges so far as the election year gets serious.
And teen sensation Luke Littler's incredible journey at the World Darts Championship ends with him losing a final showdown against Luke Humphries. But what a performance that was.
OK, let's get the latest then on that darts. With Paul Coit, good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to say something slightly controversial.
Go on.
And that is, I'm glad that Luke Littler did not win the final.
What? Yes, that's very bad.
I'll tell you the reason I'm saying this, and I was thinking about this yesterday as well. He's a 16-year-old, And I know how much press attention has moved around him. I know that the parents, that you've got neighbours, that press are knocking on their door, they want to know everything. What does he eat? Where does he go? What's he going to do with his money? Every time that his name is mentioned, there's a money... there's an amount of money which is next to it. It's like, he's won already £100,000. He's now won 200. He could win £500,000 and he's a 16-year-old. And I just think it's probably in his best interest because he has a huge future ahead of him.
This is the parent in you talking.
Do you think that's what it is? I think it might be, and I just think it's so much pressure. And should the fact that he have won it, everybody, and it may just die down a little bit. And then it would suit.
Well, I mean, he's already winning £200,000.
He hasn't done badly, has he?
Which, frankly, is a ridiculous amount of money for a 16-year-old anyway.
Yeah, but not to be a world champion or the second best in the world. You know, you look at any other tournament in any other sport, you know, we're talking millions. We're talking millions. Look at Wimbledon. It's just their sport, but they win £500,000, the winner. And without any doubt, he has done the game of darts such a great service.
Oh, wonders.
Because everybody's looking at it, aren't they? I mean, for crying out loud, Ellie was watching darts last night.
Me, of all people.
Just made my day.
Like, can you believe the scenes? But having said that, I know you've got concerns about him. One thing must be said about Luke Littler, he doesn't let the pressure get to him.
But
He's
again,
very relaxed.
But you know what, Ellie? I think that's a 16-year-old. And I think it's the 16-year-old that doesn't feel pressure. When you speak, I mentioned this yesterday, the amount of well-known sports people that I've spoken to over the years that have said, when, for example, here's a name, Paul Allen was a footballer, played for West Ham and played in the FA Cup final in 1980, and he was the youngest player. He was 17, nearly scored, and then he played for Spurs in 87 and 91. So I said, well, you know, when you played, when you were 17, he said, you know what, I had no fear. Because I was just a kid, and it was just amazing that I was there. It was only when I was older that I started to think about it more. So I think, really, he felt no pressure. He went out there, first World Championship for him, youngest there's ever been in a World Championship, and just thought, well, I'll give it a go, this is amazing. Well, I'm through to the next round. And there wasn't that pressure, and maybe a little more when it got to the final, because he went one down, and then it really ebbed and flowed, the final against Luke Humphries. And then towards the end, he just wasn't winning the legs that he was starting. But as far as but he will be a future champion. There's absolutely
He's got time, hasn't he?
But I really don't have a problem with him losing that final. And he just seems so mature beyond his years, doesn't he? I think he's 38.
I think he's
really
38.
Is. I do.
I have to say that part of the pain of it, because he was leading 4-2 at one point, wasn't he?
And it could have been 5-2. And if
he was looking quite good, Stephen.
It was one dart away. That's it. If he'd have gone 5-2 and then it was the first to 7, who knows what would have happened? But that's sport.
But as you say, absolute wonder for the sport. I mean, the nation has really got behind Luke Littler.
Oh, without doubt. It'd be interesting. This is what I want to know, what happens now over the next couple of weeks. Because we know that had he won, then the pictures everywhere, he's walking there, he is with the trophy. Let's see him at home with the trophy. And then it will go on, and then there'll be more and more press. Maybe because he didn't win, maybe there will be a little less, which, like I say, I don't think is a bad thing. That's the father in me, isn't it?
No, I think you're absolutely
very
right. I think you're
protective.
absolutely right in that it's too much too young. As hugely talented as he is, this would be better for him in another 2 or 3 years.
I think so. I think so. Can we hear from him? Have we got time to hear from him?
Oh, yes.
Well, there was a press conference afterwards, of course, and this is what Luke had to say straight after the final.
It's been unbelievable. Like I've said, I just wanted to win one game, come back after Christmas, and that was it. That's the only goals I set, so this is just a massive bonus. No one likes losing, and I've not really lost much, but to lose on that stage, you can't be angry at yourself. The only thing I was angry with was I was losing a lot of legs with my throw, so then Luke could break, hold, and I'd just be chasing every set, really. It's just unbelievable. I hope I've captured loads of young people's minds to get on the board and just try it out, and if they don't like it, then that's what they want to do. But I'd advise them to try it because it is a good sport, and once you get into it, you just always love it. People have told me I've been like the 4th favourite after my first game, but I don't really look at that. Like I've said many times, I've just got to beat what's in front of me.
I tell you what, he doesn't sound like I thought he'd sound.
Really? What did you think?
No, I don't. He's...
We were like that, right?
I tell you what, he sounds like he's got his head screwed on.
He has, there's no doubt about that. And there was one thing that really did bug me yesterday,
Oh,
and this
God.
was in a press conference. And often you get people will try and come up with a question, you know what it's like in the business, and ask some sort of... Anyway, someone actually asked the question, Luke, do you have a message to other 16-year-olds who are in the middle of their GCSEs and doing their GCSEs? What is your message to them? And he just went, well, I didn't get any GCSEs, but, you know, I've got message, you know, if you want to play darts, do that. It's like, what are you trying to do? And that's what worries me, is when people try and back them into a corner, look for a quote. He's a kid. He doesn't look like a kid, but he's a kid, and he has a great future.
Yeah.
Very protective, it's very cute.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's it. Good old Luke. It'll be fine. But we've got Glenn Durrant in with us in an hour, pro darts player, so he's going to be with us, and also Dimitri van den Berg live from Belgium just after 9 o'clock to talk about him as well. Former world youth champion too.
Oh, we've got a good lineup.
Paul, thanks very much indeed.
Now, still to come, the top 10 best valued cities in the UK have been named. And has your city made the list? Well, we'll find out next. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
6:41, good morning to you. Time to have a look at the headliners today with former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and GP and medical writer, Dr. René Honderkamp. Good to see you both this morning. Before we start, let's have a look at the front pages.
The Times reports on the UK's warning to Houthi rebels to cease their attacks in the Red Sea.
Telegraph has Boris Johnson slamming the Met Police's Israel probe.
The Mail report on banks beginning to offer fixed-rate mortgages of under 4%.
The Guardian has junior doctors warning they are ready to hold more strikes.
And the Daily Express leads with Esther Ranson's raising money to fund the helpline she launched for lonely older people.
OK, let's go through some of those then with Dawn and René. Good to see you both. Dawn, let's start with the front of the Telegraph and this Gaza probe from the Metropolitan Police that Boris Johnson's not happy with.
Yes, I didn't even know this was a thing. But evidently, the Metropolitan Police are investigating Israel over alleged war crimes. They've got notices up at the airports for travellers coming back from Israel-Palestine, asking that they report any war crimes or crimes against humanity they have witnessed whilst in Israel, and I'm assuming Gaza, although not many people are leaving Gaza, are they? And it's just like, hold on a minute, haven't the Met got enough to do? I mean, it's a bit outside their area, isn't it? I mean, you know, we saw a child, 16-year-old, knifed to death on Primrose Hill on New Year's Eve. 21 teenagers have died violent death, 18 stabbings in London. I mean, rape may as well be legal in London because only 3% of cases are being solved. Why are the Met Police concentrating? I think Boris Johnson is actually right to be concerned about this. And once again, it's making the Jewish community feel very concerned about what's going on here and also risking a diplomatic incident with Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely bizarre. It's the weirdest headline of the day, I think. You know, where were the Metropolitan Police when Boko Haram were kidnapping 300 children in Africa? You know, why are they suddenly just interested in this war when there are wars going on everywhere around the world? They're the Metropolitan Police. The clue is in the name. Would you please concentrate on the metropolitan city of this country?
Yeah. No, I agree. It's very, very odd.
Very odd. Very strange. I mean, you know, all right.
As you say, why aren't they focusing on the anti-Semitic hate crimes?
Yeah, I mean, that's up over 100%, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, and the rest.
And the rest by now, probably. It just doesn't... I don't understand what's going on. Obviously, war crimes are potentially being committed and they do need to be looked into.
But they're not looked
However,
into,
not by the Metropolitan Police.
No.
This says to me that the Metropolitan Police are under pressure from internal sources to do this kind of things because they have become politicised, whatever anyone wants to say.
OK, Renee, let's have a look at the front page of The Guardian, shall we? And this is a warning from striking doctors that there could be further disruption. It's not what people want to hear, is it?
No, it isn't what people want to hear. And as a GP, obviously working, trying to navigate what's going on in the NHS since COVID, since waiting lists now have got to the point where I regularly say to patients, I don't know how long that will take. It could be over a year. I really have no idea. I'm afraid to say I think this is wicked, this strike. I think people will die. People will be affected, and the demands of the junior doctors are so unrealistic that we just can't even go to where they want to be. And you look
but is that... I mean, they're holding up signs there saying £15 an hour is not a fair wage. That's not true.
So I published yesterday the pay scales for junior doctors, and after 2 years of qualifying, for example, a GP, which is considered to be a hard-to-fill post, is on £58,000. You know, they escalate very, very quickly. So, you know, every junior doctor knows when they qualify what they're going to be earning when they qualify. There are lots of pay premium, lots of other bits and pieces that get added in. And I'm sorry, it's just too much. The conditions for junior doctors are awful. That's what should be tackled. Pay is not going to change it. The conditions, they should be valued, they should be listened to, they should have hot food, they should have somewhere to rest. All of those things are important and are terrible, and they should be addressed. Giving them a 35% pay increase is not going to change that, and it's not helping patients.
No.
Retention is one of the biggest issues, isn't it, Renee? I mean, the amount of doctors that go over to Australia, and not only for better pay, but for better conditions. So you think this is more than just the money?
So I think that, yes, there's a lot wrong with junior doctors and nurses' conditions, but I don't think that's why they're striking. I think this is a political strike. I think they want to bring down the government, and I think that's why they haven't settled. Rob Lawrenson, the leader, said during the strike, when Scottish doctors settled for 12%, and he was asked by journalists, will you now settle for 12%? He said, oh, no, because we're dealing with a different government.
Right. I think, I mean, there was one... I mean, they don't do it so much now, but when they initially went on strike, there was a couple of them holding up placards saying a rude word to the Tories, and that tells you exactly what that was about. And I think the interesting paragraph in this particular report on the front of The Guardian, the warnings leave Rishi Sunak facing fresh pressure today over his pledge to reduce NHS waiting times. Since he made that vow exactly a year ago, it's gone up and increased by 500,000, official figures reveal. And I think that's what this is about.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd be on this strike with this sort of demand if there was a Labour government.
Yeah. OK. If you've got any views on that, let us know. Meanwhile, Dawn, we all need to head out and get ourselves a new mortgage.
Yes, this is a really exciting story, said nobody ever. Look,
do you know what it is, though? This is a weird
you get
thing.
excited about weird things, Stephen, if you don't mind me saying so. Look, it is a good news story, obviously.
Of course it is.
You know, mortgage rates have soared, and a lot of people who their fixed rates have come to an end have been lumbered with 5-6%, and you couldn't get you couldn't. So you ended up paying a lot more money. Now, New Year mortgage price war boost for Tory hopes. Now, again, the opposite of what The Guardian have done. The Mail are doing this story on their front page because it is pro-Tory. They are supporting the government, The Guardian, and knocking the government. This is what these papers are put on earth to do. And you know, and it's HSBC, the first major bank to offer fixed-rate deals under 4%, with rival lenders expected to follow suit. Expected carrying a lot of weight there, to be fair. You know, it's good news, OK? We can go back to having cheaper mortgages. But the point of this being on the front page, like the point of the Guardian story being on the front page, is to support whatever political side they want to support.
You see, I wouldn't see this as a political story, particularly. I just think you need to always take this... I know politics affects house prices and all the rest of it. I'd take politics out of this and just go, well... The housing market is vital to our economy.
Yes, of course.
And if under 4%, and they could well drop, because there will be a price war on this as they try and get people back on
yeah,
the
because
ladder.
where one goes, the others will follow suit, because it's a very competitive market, and it's good news for the housing market. It's good news for youngsters trying to get on their on the property market.
Who it isn't good news for is those people who were forced to remortgage last year, and they were faced with: do I choose a 5-year fixed at 5% or a 3-year? And those people are still going to be really, really struggling for the coming years.
Well, they could have gone variable.
They could, but, you know, when you're watching every single penny, Stephen, you know, even an extra £50 a month fix is still better. So there are a lot of people that have been harmed by this and will continue to be harmed.
Well, no, that's absolutely right. And whether there's... Well, they won't have any option, will they?
No.
They won't have any option. But mind you, see, I got a thing from my gas supplier not that long ago saying, oh, we're reintroducing fixed rates now, which you can do. But the fixed rate was really no cheaper than the variable. So you sort of think, well, what's the point in tying myself in if the prices could drop?
You're supposed to think the prices are going to go up. I better grab this.
As you know, they're not always fair.
That's the thing is, unless you've got a crystal ball with any of these things, certainly with mortgages, you've got no idea which way to jump, have you?
You're supposed to take the best thing you can at the time, can't you? Renee, let's have a look at Esther Ranson, shall we, and her helpline for the lonely.
So this is really close to my heart because I have been one of those workers on Esther's volunteer, and I spent 18 months where every Sunday evening at 5 o'clock I phoned an elderly person and we had a chat for half an hour. And we got to know each other and we shared each other's lives, and hopefully that brought some, you know, relief to the loneliness that people... And when we're talking the elderly here, the figures are quite staggering. Esther's actually aiming this at people over 60. And there are 7 million people over 60 who say that they don't speak to a human in the week unless they pop to the shop.
60's young.
60 is very young.
So young.
But Lifeline need £4 million a year to stay afloat. Now, that doesn't say a lot, but in a charity world where everybody's struggling to get money, it is. Over Christmas, they had 5,000 calls in a 10-day period, with 2.8 million people saying that they just yearn companionship. And they're not getting it from their phones, from social media, whatever people might say about AI. We need to talk to the elderly. When you're in the supermarket and there is somebody in the queue next to you, talk to them. When you pass someone in the street, say hello.
Yeah. And you know what, Renee, I think the whole AI thing and the fact that, you know, even when you're phoning your bank or even your GP's surgery now, you get through to an automated voice. There's no one you talk to. You know, I found... I can't remember who it was. I just said, I just need to talk. I got through to a chat bot who was trying to help me solve a problem.
When has a chat bot ever helped?
I just said, I just want to talk to a human being, please. But that is, you know, and with bank branches closing and pubs closing, it's not just about alcohol, it's about social interaction for lonely people.
100%. And we know that loneliness kills because it drives depression, it drives anxiety, and people that are like that die sooner. We need to actually start valuing the elderly in our society. And when I say the elderly, we need to value anybody that's over the age of 21, frankly. And we need to actually think about, you know, what they've brought to the world, what they've given us, their insight and their value.
I'll tell you what about talking to people in the street, though. You see, I'm a northerner, in case you hadn't noticed. And so we do it all the time. Down here, it's very difficult. And I was only thinking there was a sketch about it on some show a few years ago. But there's, like, security guards around this area of London. And I always say, morning, when I'm walking through at 4 o'clock or whatever. and they look at you like you've gone insane because you've said good morning.
But still do it, Stephen. I do it. I smile at people when I get on the tube, and you know they hesitate and then they smile back. You know, normally, not everybody, but I do think it's important. I will always speak to somebody in the supermarket queue.
Supermarkets. Another one you've got to scan it yourself. You can't even get to chat to anyone in the supermarket.
Well, you can always speak to the assistants who have to come running because nothing can be red light flashes all the time. No, I haven't put anything in the bagging area. Dawn, best value cities for quality of life.
Yeah, this is lovely. This is our a feel-good on the Daily Graph, Daily Telegraph, even. It's very early. The Daily Telegraph features pages. Britain's top 10 cities, and London isn't one of them. Well, that figures, doesn't it? And do we know? Can we guess what's coming in at number 1? Ellie's looking at the paper. That's cheating,
I'm
Ellie.
trying to have a little look. I can't read. I can't.
It is Dunfermline in Fife. Is actually one of the best places to live for the perfect balance of cost, career, and quality of life.
That's beautiful as well.
Swiftly followed. No.
Oh, come on. Just put a jumper on.
I need to go south.
Actually, swiftly followed by You're not in luck here, Renee. It's Newcastle, Salford, Leeds, Cardiff. Cardiff's a bit wet as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
How about... They're all mostly north. Chelmsford and Devon are the first two that are sort of...
Right.
Devon is one,
So what's a full list, then?
OK, right, the full list. In at number 1, Dunfermline, 5. Number 2, Newcastle. Number 3, Greater Manchester, Salford. Number 4, Leeds. Right. Number 5, Cardiff. I don't think your birthplace is in here, Stephen. Number 6, Derby in Derbyshire. Number 7, Worcester. Number 8, Chelmsford in Essex. Number 9, Exeter in Devon. Number 10, in at Milton Keynes. And one to watch coming up is Liverpool.
Right.
London doesn't even come close.
Number 10 for me, but no, because I wasn't born in it. I was born in a village. There's no cities. There's no cities within an hour of me. The village life, you see, that's very good. Need a bit of village life. No, I'm not surprised that most of them are in the north, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, because
we have a more chilled attitude.
Friendlier.
And friendlier people.
Yeah.
It all feeds into it, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I think this is also... It's cheaper as well. I mean, that is one of the main things that this is based on.
I used to take my son regularly up to Manchester United because he was... Of course, he lived in London. He was a Manchester United fan. And I always used to get lost up there. And I used to stop and ask someone on the way. They'd get in my car and drive there with me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can well believe it.
Yeah, that happens in London, but then they stab you.
Yeah, it's a different world up there. It's a different world, and if you are watching anywhere sort of north of, I don't know, north of London, you'll know what it's like, and you come down here,
it's dark, isn't it?
London is a very busy, very cramped, and very lonely place. For a lot of people.
It can be, yeah. But, however, as a Londoner, I'm going to give a shout-out to London, especially East London.
Yeah. Are your decks down, Renee?
Sorry?
Your decks?
Am I dead?
Christmas decorations.
Oh, yes, because I have a new Siamese kitten. He wouldn't let me have a tree up. I tried.
All right. Because Jeffrey from Evesham says, I'm taking my decorations down tomorrow. Well, that is 12th night, so well done for you. Paul... says Christmas decks go up on the 1st of December and come down for our St Stephen's Day celebrations. That's Boxing Day.
Boxing Day.
Happens every year in our household, works for us. I couldn't take them down on Boxing Day. It's
very
too much.
soon, isn't it? Very soon. What about you, Dawn?
Mine at 12th night. So
tomorrow's a busy day.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a very busy day, actually. But I had a friend who took his down first thing in the morning on Boxing Day, and he's got 3 little kids. Oh. And it's like, that's just a bit Scroogey, isn't it?
It's a bit too soon for me, I think. But there you go. Let us know, gbviews@gbnews.com. In the meantime, let's see what's happening with the weather and Alex.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coasts, but for many Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel. Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock, Thursday, the 4th of January. Today, new documents relating to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released by a US court, with both Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton being named.
Tax cuts, maybe a new Prime Minister and a Farage comeback. We take a look at the pledges so far as the election year gets serious.
Yes, politicians are now fully into election mode, with Keir Starmer laying out his vision for Britain today. But is the country bored of politics already?
Teen sensation Luke Littler and his incredible journey at the World Darts Championship ends with, well, not the news he wanted, at least. Paul Coyte's got all the reaction.
But congratulations, Luke Humphries. I feel bad for Luke Humphries. He's the new world champion, so well done to him. But the biggest TV audience, well, bigger on sport than the Ashes and the Ryder Cup. Tickets going for £1,000 a pop, and that is all down to the 16-year-old Luke Littler. He has quite a future, got to tell you.
Even I was watching. Now, why have a record number of sellers put their houses on the market? As banks continue to reduce their mortgage interest rates, we ask, is it all good news?
Plus, it is the first anniversary of Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges. Stop the boats, remember that one? Well, they're still crossing and the economy is still lagging, though we are doing better than a lot of Europe. So we're going to be talking about this in the next hour. Is it really something we need to hold the PM to account on?
And Alex Deacon has your weather.
Drier, calmer, colder weather on the way for all of us over the next few days. But today there is more heavy rain to tell you about across the far south. I'll have a full forecast later on.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. We've been talking about Christmas decorations this morning because you might notice it's a bit bare behind us. The trees have been taken down at GB News. There's a graveyard of Christmas trees in the front door.
Does look like that.
It does. They're all looking very bare and sad. So we've asked you whether you've taken them down or not. It's 12th night tomorrow. You're correct.
Thank you.
So we're asking you if you've taken them down yet. Jackie says, we have 2 birthdays on January the 6th and we leave them up until late in the day or the next day. My birthday is on Blue Monday. So we're very busy in our house in January.
Blue Monday, is that a thing?
Yeah, I think it's mid-Jan.
Well, Pam from Malden in Essex is very traditional. Our decorations went up just a week before Christmas, but they'll stay up till Candlemas, which is the 2nd of February, as was traditional.
Ooh.
I find January is the gloomiest time of year, so it suits as well.
Yeah.
Candlemas. Oh, that's the sort of thing you hear in, like, a Dickens novel.
Yeah, it sounds quite nice, doesn't it?
It does sound
I
nice.
understand that, though, because January is very gloomy. The lights help.
They do, yeah, they do. I don't know. I've just sort of had enough of them now.
Yours are down. Couldn't get them down quick enough in the Dixon household.
Well, we thought do it before the New Year's in.
Yeah.
On the politics side of things, and which we're going to be talking about in just a second, because we are in the election year, Bet from Highcliffe in Dorset. And this is an interesting point. She says, even if the Conservatives were the only party running, they would still lose, because people are just fed up with them. And I do think there is I know there'll be a lot of people watching and listening who disagree, but I think this is what happens when a party is in power for a long period of time. People just get ready for a change, whatever that change may be. So I think you've got a point, Bet, actually.
Yeah. Mark says the best thing anybody can do is raise the tax allowance. It benefits everyone. Interesting you say that, actually, Mark, 'cause Reform UK did say that yesterday, didn't they? They said they'd raise the tax allowance to 20,000 instead of 12,500.
And Anna says it's time for Reform UK to take the country by storm. Well, that's up to us, isn't it? I mean, there is an argument which has been made, and it's a valid one, to say, if you vote for Reform, then it's just going to let Keir Starmer win because it splits the vote to the right. That may be true. That's often said about a lot of smaller parties, that we don't vote for them because it's going to split our vote. You get that with the Lib Dems and Labour and all. So it's, but it could well be a valid point.
Yeah.
We shall have to wait and see, because it is general election year. We are going to get that vote some point this year, and that means that the campaigning is, frankly, already underway.
Yes, Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer are set to launch their bids to convince the public to back them in the contest for number 10 today.
Well, they'll be giving their first speeches of the year today. It's sort of a Q&A with the PM, speech from Keir Starmer. And if those are the Lib Dems and Reform UK yesterday are anything to go by, it would seem the gloves are off.
2024, the year the voters finally get to pack up this awful, out-of-touch Conservative government. Throw their disastrous policies into the skip.
Starmageddon is a risk near you in 2024. Prime Minister, you're not allowed to continue to run the country. You have failed. The Tories have become like the Labour Party, two sides of the same socialist coin.
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, for us in Westminster. Good morning to you, Olivia. So we just heard there from Sir Ed Davey MP and Richard Tice. They were setting out their plans yesterday. We're expecting to hear from Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak a little bit later on today. Let's start with Sir Keir Starmer. What are we expecting to hear?
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a pretty sort of stirring speech from Keir Starmer. What the Labour Party is worried about in the next election isn't that there's going to be a huge swell of support for the Conservatives. At this stage, almost no one thinks that's very likely, but that people won't bother to go out and vote for Labour. Keir Starmer himself is seen as a bit of a beige character. People say he sort of doesn't have that much charisma. And in somewhere like Uxbridge, where Labour were set to win a by-election, the Conservatives Conservatives ended up actually edging in because it became a referendum about ULEZ. It became all about one local issue. And that's a bit of a problem for Keir Starmer. People might not bother to go out and vote Labour at the election, particularly if this ends up being a really long, drawn-out election campaign. If the election ends up being in September, October, November, as lots of people are suggesting it could well be, people might just be bored by the time that we get there. So Keir Starmer today will be saying, no, there is a chance for hope. You've got to go out and vote for me. He'll also be talking about the economy. That's set to be the sort of substance, the crux of his speech. He'll say that he isn't just expecting to fight an election on the economy, he wants to fight an election on the economy. Now, that's really important because traditionally, Labour is on tougher ground when talking about the economy. It's safe when it's talking about the NHS and about public services. But when it's about, handing money back to people, living within our means, the Conservatives tend to be more trusted. Keir Starmer is trying to turn that image around. He's been speaking to lots of business leaders. He's presenting himself as a sort of Blairite, sensible on the economy, easy does it. He might talk about tax cuts, which would also suggest that he's keen to steal the clothes from the Conservatives. He wants to show that Labour isn't the Labour of old, the Labour of the Jeremy Corbyn years. It's in fact the Labour of even older, the Labour of the Tony Blair years. So that's what we're expecting to see from Starmer. More of the same, really, but perhaps a little more stirring than we've seen before. Something to get people out of their chairs and into the polling booths on election day.
What about the Tories in all of this, then? Because there's a tremendous amount of infighting. There's still people wanting to, on the back benches, wanting to move into number 10. There's all this talk about a pact with Farage and Reform UK. I mean, there's all this hoo-ha going on. How does the Prime Minister calm all that down?
Well, it's a very good question. And last year we saw Rishi Sunak struggle quite a lot to try and control that sort of infighting within his own party. The first fight that he's got coming probably towards the end of this month is the third reading of the Rwanda bill. Now, you'll remember at the end of the last parliamentary term, before we broke up for Christmas, there was a lot of hoo-ha over whether Conservative MPs were going to back the Rwanda bill at its second reading. There were those on the left of the party who didn't like the bill because they thought that it strayed too close to breaking international law. And there were those on the right of the party who didn't like the bill because they thought it didn't go far enough. They thought that there were too many loopholes in it and that migrants would end up coming to the UK and we would be unable to deport them. Rishi Sunak still has that to contend with. He has got to try and keep everyone on side at the same time. How does he do that? Well, he seems to think, and the team around him seem to think, that what he's got to do is to keep talking about those 5 pledges that he made in January 2023 and try and persuade his MPs, first of all, but the public more generally, that he is making progress and that it's worth sticking with the Conservatives so essentially they can finish what they've started. And there is some progress being made in some areas. Inflation has been halved, as he promised. The economy is set to grow later in this decade, although not before a general election, unfortunately, for Rishi Sunak. The boats are being slowly dented. There's a dent in the number of people coming over, 30% fewer in 2023 compared to 2022. So that's the sort of argument we will see Rishi Sunak making in the weeks and months to come. Stick with me. I've started something. I want to finish it. I'm the best man for the job.
OK, Olivia Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, nearly 200 names associated with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released to the public by a judge in New York.
Yes, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton and Michael Jackson are among those listed, though the former US president has not been accused of anything illegal, and lawyers for Prince Andrew have previously denied any claims of wrongdoing.
Well, the disclosures throw new light on the sex trafficking network directed by Epstein, who died in prison in 2019, and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, who is still in prison.
Well, royal correspondent Richard Fitzwilliams joins us now. Very good morning to you, Richard. And what have we learnt from these new court documents?
Well, regarding Prince Andrew, it was known, of course, that he was likely to be listed, but most specifically, And these documents are from a case brought by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who was Prince Andrew's accuser, against Ghislaine Maxwell, that was settled in 2017. They contain some bizarre allegations referencing Joanna Schoberg, who was one of Epstein's victims, and a spitting image latex puppet in 2001 in Epstein's home. I mean, there is, of course, as you're showing, the photograph that Prince Andrew, who denies any wrongdoing, has never been able to explain away. And there's no doubt that this friendship with Epstein, which was an absolute catastrophe, cost him his job as special trade envoy, his 230 patronages, his ability to use his HRH, and he has no part in official royal duties, nor is likely to.
Is it a case with these new documents and the sort of, I don't know if we'd call them allegations in there, or whether it's just, you know, just a little bit more detail on one or two things? I mean, the palace has denied any wrongdoing once again. Is it going to be a case that he just has to ride this one out?
Well, in this case of riding it out, what it is constantly reported Prince Andrew wishes to do, he settled an out-of-court case with Virginia Roberts Giuffre in February 2022 for a reported £12 million. Now, there is no further case against him. Equally, he has not, so far as we're aware, cooperated with the FBI to attempt to trace some of Epstein's accomplices, and this was something that he said he would do in that car crash interview that has become so infamous, and indeed people will be reminded of that with two television films being released with reference to this, which depict it. There's no doubt that he's in limbo. If he were able to carve out some sort of future in a different area, for example, running the royal estates or a role of that sort, that would be one thing. We have constant reports that he has hopes of some form of rehabilitation. But if that's so, he certainly is, whatever the legal situation is far from when it comes to the case, when it comes to the court of public opinion, his ratings hardly exist. So it's more or less an impossible task for him at the moment when it comes to anything future as a member of the royal family, when it comes to anything official.
OK. Richard, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Now, the time is 14 minutes past 7. Let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom. And a 49-year-old man has been arrested after reports that shots were fired at 3 locations in Liverpool last night. It comes after a major incident was declared at a cinema where there were accounts of a man brandishing a gun. Police cars, a helicopter and armed cops attended the Showcase Cinema in East Lancashire Road.
Nottingham hospitals have declared a critical incident, urging patients not to attend unless it's an emergency. It's due to extreme pressure on services, with hospitals and A&E all full. It comes as a number of hospitals have called on striking junior doctors to return to work because of patient safety concerns. 6 days of industrial action began this morning after talks between the government and the BMA union broke down.
And the Princess Royal is to make an official visit to Sri Lanka next week, marking 75 years of diplomacy with Britain. Princess Anne will be joined by her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence, on a 3-day visit. It comes as the King and Queen are expected to journey to Canada in May, followed by Australia, New Zealand and Samoa later on in the year.
Now, Boxing Day had a whole new meaning last year.
Sounds weird, doesn't it?
Does sound weird. Because many are hoping to sell up and move out. Now, a record number of sellers listed their homes for sale on Rightmove on the 26th of December.
Well, Boxing Day saw over 10,000 properties come onto the market. That's the largest number of new sellers in any single day since 2011. Well, this comes as HSBC has become the first major high street lender to offer a mortgage deal with a rate below 4%.
Have we turned a corner? Let's talk to property expert Russell Quirk. Good to see you this morning, Russell. Look, first and foremost, these Boxing Day figures. I can't imagine why anyone would list their house for sale on Boxing Day if they've not got a bit of cleaning up to do.
Or a hangover.
Or a hangover. How much credence do we give these particular figures?
So we should take these with a little pinch of salt, Stephen, because actually Rightmove did orchestrate quite a clever and intensive campaign to encourage estate agents to get people to list their homes ready for publication on Boxing Day. This whole thing about Boxing Day being the busiest day of the year, I mean, technically, in terms of, I guess, what you'd call property voyeurs, that is definitely the case. So lots and lots of people playing with their new iPhones and iPads, bored perhaps on Boxing Day, obviously looking at properties on Rightmove and indeed Zoopla on the market and so on. However, the numbers here do show that there's actually not just a huge increase in sellers coming to the market, but a massive influx of potential buyers. Now, quite apart from the fact that, of course, Boxing Day being busy, a bit of a shame that actually just about every estate agent in Britain would have been closed that day. But just putting that to one side for a second, this does, to answer your question, bode very, very well for the 2024 property market against a backdrop of 2023, which wasn't catastrophic, but certainly was pretty lean. So I think this year we can look forward to volumes returning, positivity, positive sentiment, and actually, dare I venture, maybe a slight uptick in house prices by the end of this year.
And some good news as well when it comes to mortgage rates. HSBC are now offering rates of below 4%, the first lender to do so.
I lost the audio.
And it's hoped others are going to follow suit. I think we have just lost Russell, but we'll try reconnect with him.
He said his piece, so he's unplugged his...
It's positive news for 2024. It's looking like it's on the up.
Well, fixed-rate deals of under 4% sound much more manageable. As one of our paper reviewers was saying earlier on, the problem is, and your heart has to go out to people who've signed a fixed-rate deal for 5-6% in the last few months.
Yeah.
Now it's dropped.
I've got a friend who has got a mortgage of over £4,000 because they fixed at the highest level.
£4,000 a month?
Really struggling.
Good grief.
To make ends meet.
Right.
Yeah, very, very difficult.
Let's see if I think we've got Russell back just for a quick word on those mortgage rates, Russell. I mean, HSBC's under 4%. Are we going to see more people follow?
Well, we've already seen Halifax, Leeds and multiple other lenders dropping, maybe not quite down to 3.8% as HSBC have, but certainly dropping down to just over 4%. And look, dare I again venture that we may now start to see in the coming weeks a mortgage war, because, of course, despite what rates might be, lenders need to lend. Can I just say, though, Stephen and Ellie, that the rates of kind of 4% as a mortgage, these are not high rates. You know, most of us remember rates at 10, 12, 15%. We are now at what I would call normal levels of mortgage borrowing. There's nothing to panic about here. And frankly, if fixed rates start to drop another 0.5% or even 1% this year, we're back into kind of golden mortgage rate bonus territory, frankly.
Yeah, well, it's a fair point worth remembering. Russell, good to see you. Thank you.
House prices are so much more now, though.
That's the thing. The rates will drop, but if there's more buyers on the market, then the prices go up.
Yeah.
Which is great news if you're selling, great news if you're a homeowner, bad news if you're a first-time buyer.
Certainly is. Let's have a look now at your weather with Alex Deacon.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deacon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England, perhaps as well in rural rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again, the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles. A few showers scattered about around western coasts. But for many, Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
Now, the Great British Giveaway is coming to an end as lines close tomorrow. So it's your last chance to win £10,000 cash, an iPhone and a shopping spree. So don't miss out. And here are all of the entry details.
Time is ticking on your chance to become the very first winner of the Great British Giveaway and grab cash, tech and a ton of treats. There's a stunning £10,000 in tax-free cash. Extra money that can be in your bank to make this year extra special. We'll also give you a tech update with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And finally, we'll treat you to a shopping spree with £500 in vouchers to spend at the store of your choice. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
It is 7:23. Still to come, 1 year on from Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges. What has he actually achieved? We're going to be talking about that in just a moment.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. The time is 27 minutes past 7. Now, a year ago today, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak set out his 5 key pledges for 2023.
So, 5 promises. We will halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists and stop the boats. Those are the people's priorities. They are your government's priorities, and we will either have achieved them or not. No tricks, no ambiguity. We're either delivering for you or we're not.
Oh, was that the killer line? We're either delivering for you or we're not. It looks like they're not. So can we trust the Tories in the polling booth? Let's talk to Conservative Councillor for Epping and Thaden, Holly Whitbread, and former Minister of State for Europe, former Labour MP Dennis McShane. Good to see you both this morning. Holly, you've got to be honest, when you look at that, he came out with all that list of things he was going to do, and the implication was that it was all going to be done within a year. It hasn't really happened.
I mean, it was certainly ambitious to say that it would all be done in a year, but progress has been made, and they're certainly still the right priorities. I think in terms of the boat crossings, we have seen a reduction, which is good news, and in terms of asylum processing, which was one of the kind of key things which was causing a blockage and an issue, that has really increased as well. So there has been some progress, and obviously in terms of the economy, inflation has halved, but, you know, he set himself a huge challenge, but there's still time to go before the general election, and a week's a long time in politics.
Dennis McShane, what do you make of all of this? Has Rishi Sunak made a noose around his own neck with these 5 pledges?
I would never advise a Prime Minister of any sort to offer a general promise list all to be done within 12 months. We know the economy shrunk slightly on last figures. It may go up again next year. We all hope that. We know inflation has come down across the world because of lowering energy prices, but it's much lower in comparative European countries. Waiting lists now soaring to the highest ever at 500,000, and this ridiculous attack on doctors who've done 10, 20 years medical experience in the hospitals and are being told they can't get a wage rise to take them back to where they were 10 years ago. Boats, yup, Rishi sensibly sent an awful lot of money, shed loads of money to France, and they bought a lot of Stanley knives for their policemen on the coast, and they're going around slashing at the little rubber Zodiac boats. That's good, but these are the winter falls. Wait till spring comes. But he has let in 962,000, I repeat, 962,000 immigrants from India, Pakistan and Nigeria in the last year to make up for all the Europeans that we sent home. Up to the public to decide.
Yeah, the problem with this is, Dennis, whereas he may well have failed in a lot of what he promised, we don't know what Labour would do that would be any different. I mean, the problem, Adrian's been in touch, says Starmer has the charisma of a quiche, and hasn't really got a lot of policies either at the moment.
Well, it's a bit better than a lettuce, I suppose. We're moving slightly upscale. I mean, Rishi is many things. He's the richest man in Britain other than King Charles, and he's obviously a clever guy to have made all that money. But has he got much charisma? Not exactly the word I'd choose, but you're quite right, but sufficient unto the day. If I was Keir Starmer, thank God I'm not, I couldn't tell you really what I could do until I was in Downing Street and saw the real figures. The National Statistics Authority, that covers the Office of National Statistics, in charge of national statistics, has launched an official inquiry into Rishi's promises on the NHS and a bit on inflation. These are the guardians of the truth about figures in Britain, and they're saying, we think we have to examine what these promises amount to. It's just not a good look.
Holly, do you think Labour are offering a good alternative?
Well, I think Labour's only kind of appeal and kind of pledge, really, is that they're not the Conservatives. And I do think Keir Starmer seriously lacks in charisma. And actually, when I go out campaigning, which I do quite often, there's no great draw towards Labour. And actually, people do want to put faith in the Conservatives again, and their priorities are what the Conservatives are trying to deliver on. So I think as we kind of get up to that general election, people will start looking at the priorities, looking at the progress which has been made, which is limited, but there's more time to go, and actually say, what are Labour offering? Because I can't see that it's much different.
But this is the sort of noose around his neck idea, though, isn't it, Holly? Because he did say, he listed his 5 priorities a year ago today, and then said, we will deliver. You can judge me on whether we deliver these priorities. And the reality is he isn't. So, you know, even if he repeats these, even if these are important areas to cover come the general election, will people actually believe him when he says he'll deal with it?
Well, I think without a doubt, no one can say that Rishi and the government haven't been working hard over the last year, and I think he's had a full year in power now. And as I said, some progress has been made. But what we can't forget is we're in the most difficult political time ever. We've come out of a pandemic, which has had huge economic and social consequences. You just look at the economy and the challenges that we faced, largely as a result of war in Europe and in Ukraine. So there's been huge challenges. Some progress has been made, but there's further to go.
And Dennis, do you think Rishi Sunak chose the right 5 pledges when he made those 5 promises a year ago today? Or do you think he should have perhaps chosen something else? When you touched earlier on legal migration, perhaps that should have been a promise instead?
Look, it would be lovely to see the 5 promises he didn't choose and the other 5 promises he didn't go for. He made a mistake. He's made so many mistakes. But there's one startling headline today in one of the papers that the CEOs of the 100 biggest FTSE companies, the biggest companies in Britain, earn more in 3 days than the average British worker earns in a year. This is a government for the rich, by the richest man in Britain, and only helping his kind of people. And there's so many, we know that in London, which is a pretty rich city by any standards, the absolute poverty and difficulty are right across the country, and he's not addressing any of those issues. And so I agree, I'm canvassing too. I don't think the election's in the bag for Labour 1 second. I mean, I first stood for Parliament in 1974. God, I'm so old. And I've seen parliamentary things go up and down, but I just don't think the British people want Rishi Sunak to be their PM much longer.
OK, look, we've got to leave it there. Holly, Dennis, thank you both very much indeed. Your views on that will be very welcome this morning. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, it's time to go through all of the latest sports news. We say all the latest, but really there's only one story in town. Exactly, and Paul Coit is here.
What could that possibly be? Is it horse racing? Are we talking about the FA Cup later on in the weekend? Or are we talking about the
throwing the spears?
Talking about the arrows.
Darts.
You know, one of my favourite phrases is maximums for show, doubles for dough.
Oh.
Does that make any sense to you whatsoever?
No, not a clue, no.
So basically, if you throw 180, looks great, you know, the 180, but it's all about the doubles. That's what you've got to finish with, so it's the doubles that earn the money. That is pretty much what Luke Littler just missed out on, to go 5-2 up in the World Championship final. And this is the 16-year-old. Of course, we all know about him. Yeah, I just wonder, see, the thing is, if this had been later on in the year, either towards the end of the year, he'd probably win Sports Personality of the Year. But by the time we get to December, I wonder whether anybody will remember what has happened at the World Championship this year. But it's taken the country by storm. Darts has suddenly got bigger and bigger. There were bigger audiences watching this World Final last night than there was for the Ryder Cup, more than there was for the Ashes. And
that's extraordinary.
It really is.
And is that purely off the back of Luke Littler?
I think it is. In fact, it definitely is.
It's his personality, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's brought us all in.
Which is a shame about Luke Humphries, then.
It is a shame about Luke Humphries, but maybe that helped, because if you fly slightly under the radar when all the attention is around this 16-year-old, maybe that helped him, I don't know. But Luke Humphries is the world number 1. He's won 5 out of 6 major titles this year, and that you know, he was the favourite from the start.
And he's young himself, isn't he? He's only 28, yeah.
28 years
well, Gillian's been in touch on that point and said Luke Humphries, he won fair and square. And whilst Luke Littler was brilliant, please don't take the glory away from the winner. It's all been about the loser. And Gerard has made the point, why is darts classed as a sport? It's a game. So I put that to you, Paul.
It is a sport. The thing is, well, what do we class as a sport? Does sport have to be athletic?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, you say that
necessarily.
because then you've got your F1 and all the rest of it. I know they have to be fit to get in the cars and all the rest of it.
They class that as a sport?
But that's a sport.
But
I think the heart rate's got to go up.
Well, I think it's the heart rate of whoever's watching it has to go up. And if you get excited...
very good.
When I'm watching darts, and I've been watching it this week, and always with the World Championship, I find myself getting excited. It's the ebb and the flow. It's two people that are actually playing against each other at something. It doesn't matter whether you're running or whether you're kicking something. The fact that you're throwing a dart doesn't make any difference because it's about the competition between the two. And if you're watching it and it gets you excited, in my book, that's a sport.
There you go. No, with you on that one.
And it was
I'm
quite
overly
exciting.
passionate about this.
Yeah.
First time I've watched the darts.
And how did you feel about it?
It was quite exciting.
It was quite exciting as you walked past it.
Yeah, well, when I say I was watching it, I was glancing over at the screen every now and again. Didn't
Listen,
have my 100% attention, but I never thought I'd see the day.
Well, it's one of those things, if you watch it and then you find yourself... It's like Olympic sport. Sometimes you think, oh, I won't watch that. But then you sit and watch it, and then before you know it, hours have gone past, and then you cut...
I did that. Volleyball. When I was at the Beijing Olympics.
Yeah.
And we had tickets. We were given tickets to the volleyball.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Oh.
It was amazing.
There you go. That makes you... That's how you became the volleyball aficionado that you are today.
Well,
it always takes one thing. So I'd like to see maybe darts at the Olympics. Paris 2024... darts gold medal. How about that?
Better than break dancing, which they are bringing in.
Yeah, blooming right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anyway, Coity, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on. Still to come, we've got an unbelievable clip of a judge being attacked by a man during his sentencing. You won't want to miss it. That's in a couple of minutes.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Oh, I hate it when I see a new promo and we're not in it.
He went, we're not in this one.
We're not in it.
Well, we're not the politics team, so I think that one's all right. We can let that one slide.
I think we're as good as.
Yeah.
Honestly, I should be having words.
Well, that looked very good.
I do like a promo.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, 7:43, let's go through some of the headlines today with former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and GP and medical writer, Dr. Renee Hunderkamp. Good to see you both this morning. Dawn, we were talking about this in the last hour, actually,
yes.
With Andrew Eamonn. It's in the FT as well. Computers will be allowed for some when it comes to English GCSEs next year.
This is from 2025, pupils taking both English language and English literature with the exam board, Edexcel, will be allowed to type their answers rather than handwriting them. And I get progress, I get how things are moving on, but unless I write something down on paper with a pen, it just doesn't go into my head
I'm exactly the same, but we're not exam age,
I know,
are we?
and this is the thing, and I was talking to Renee about it during the when we were in the green room, and it's like I get that it's progress. I understand how things are moving, but I do find it worrying. And Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein when she was just turned 19 years old, right?
Wow.
Okay. Now you get an 18-year-old send you a text. It's not even in English. Get them to write anything is like, what's happening to handwriting?
Yeah, but will they ever need it? Will they ever need handwriting?
Well, this is the problem. I mean,
well, why is it a problem?
Some things need keeping. I don't know. Look, I get it's progress. I'm just sounding like an old Luddite now,
So,
aren't
I am always the one who speaks up against all of this tech taking over our lives. But on this, I'm kind of with it. Because, I'll tell you why, when I did my first degree, it was 3 hours of written exams. And I know that after the first page of A4, no one could read my writing because I couldn't read it back. I think as long as they're not being able to access things to help them write it...
Yes, that's the
I
thing.
think as long as it is their own work, I don't have such a problem.
To be fair, that sealed your career as a GP then. You can never read a script.
Exactly.
Never know what's on my script.
I was hugely qualified.
Yeah.
Already there.
Let's have a look at this video, because we're teasing this. I want to see this as a matter of urgency. What happens if you are in court and you're hoping to get probation? This is in the States, we should point out. We haven't got the video. Why haven't we got that video?
Not yet, anyway, so stay with us. We'll get that for you, because it is bonkers. I've just seen it.
Oh, right. Well, in which case, let's talk about plant-based food, Renee, in the Times. No healthier than meat, says scientists.
Yeah, so I've unpicked this a little bit, and it's not completely as it seems. Surprise, surprise. So these are plant-based foods from the top 10 fast food outlets. So we're talking about McDonald's and Greggs and KFC here. And all of these vegan foods here are highly processed. They're loaded with sugar and salt, so they're no healthier than processed meat. But I think we can say that the problem here is the processing, not actually whether it's vegetarian or meat.
And the
with
fact
both,
it's deep fried or whatever.
It's deep fried, it has lots of additives. What we want to do is get back to cooking our own food from scratch at home, where it's not processed, and then either a vegetarian diet or a meat diet are healthy.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. I mean, the idea that anyone would think having a vegan or veggie burger in a fast food outlet is going to be healthy.
Well, surprisingly, so a McDonald's vegan quarter pounder has got 10 grams of sugar in it, which is staggering. Wow. Surprisingly, a Greggs vegan sausage roll, and I actually have a problem with that. No one should be allowed to call a vegan stick of stuff a sausage roll because it's not a sausage. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. Has only got 0.2 grams of sugar in it.
Oh, there you go.
I could just go and eat fruit and veg and stuff like that hasn't been processed into squishy, unidentifiable stuff.
Yeah.
All right. OK, let's have a look. We've got this clip at last. Let's have a look.
So this is in a Las Vegas courtroom. Oh, and you can see a man jumping over the bench there. Oh, and the United States flag come crashing down. Security...
To be fair, give him his due. He's athletic.
He really flies over that desk, doesn't he? Oh.
So, wait, look at that.
I mean... It's a bit like one of those little chipmunks, isn't he, that fly through the air.
He's, so he's been denied probation.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. That's
and he has zero chance of getting it in the future.
That's the way to win the judge over, isn't it? Yes.
Might be for the best. You think it's in a film, I think. Is that something you'd see in
Honest to goodness,
film?
it's... I mean, there should be a bit of decorum in a courtroom.
We are always led to believe, aren't we, in America, that anybody that's in a court, whether it's for a parking fine or mass murder, is changed at the hands and the feet and can barely move. So I'm not sure what really went wrong here.
Yeah, where was security? I mean,
well, this
all
is
the way up there.
I mean, we're sort of like laughing about it, but I mean, you know, it's a female judge in that clip we can see. He leaps over the desk and attacks her. Where are security? I mean, anything could have happened realistically.
Oh, well, come on, you can't... No, I disagree with you there. Because, I mean, like, the idea that security, I mean, there'd be plenty of people in the court. You can't have us sort of surrounded by security. So that
you can have him chained
maybe you should.
But you can... But as Renee said, normally in courts in America, there are security all over the place. They're often shackled, the prisoners. Renee said, even for a parking fine.
Well, it depends what he was in.
To get over the bench with that much velocity, he must have had quite a long run-up to it.
It's a bit of a run-up.
Yeah, and you can see her kind of recoiling, can't you, as he runs up.
Well, you would do.
Well, you would. I certainly would, yeah. Dawn, tell us about Fat Cat Thursday.
Oh, this is one that's going to cheer everybody up. At 1 o'clock today, bosses at Britain's biggest companies will have earned more by lunchtime than the typical worker will over the whole of 2024. Latest stats reveal that a typical FTSE 100 chief executive now takes home £3.81 million.
Oh, that must be nice.
I don't know how they cope. And that's over 109 times more than the average salary of £34,900.
See, I haven't got an issue with this.
Do you not?
No, because the idea...
jealous.
Well, yeah, it's one thing to be... But I think this is part of the issue. It's a politics of jealousy.
It is the politics of envy, but it does...
Dennis McShane referenced this earlier on, and it's like, why do we... they're the bosses of FTSE 100 companies. They're not going to be earning anything like the average person in the street.
No,
and we're not saying... And they're not earning anywhere near as much as a Premier League footballer.
No, but, I mean, that's a different market. That's supply and demand in the football market, and I get that it is also in the FTSE companies, but a lot of them aren't doing a particularly brilliant job. And the thing is, this used to be, not that long ago, it would take them 2 weeks to earn the average annual salary. And now it's, what are we, the 4th of January? It's taken them 4 days.
I think in a cost of living crisis, I agree with you. I do, and I think the politics of envy is at work everywhere. I think it just highlights, however, the massive disparity between the everyday worker and the elites who are not feeling any of the pinch from the cost of living crisis. And we must remember that during COVID, there was the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich that we have ever seen. There really was. So, you know, it just highlights that there are lots of people really, really struggling, Stephen.
Well, yeah, but there are also not that many people earning that sort of money in the great scheme of things. I don't know, I just find it a bit odd that we can... What do you expect a boss of a massive company to be earning?
£3.50.
Well, I mean, if they're earning 100 grand or 500 grand even, which would be huge salaries for most of us...
But the boss of the country earns 120,000.
That's different, though, isn't it?
So yeah, that's different, though. But it's
Well,
like
it is different.
Premiership footballers are different.
Yeah, but it's different because, like, I mean, Boris Johnson was on his, 134,000 or whatever you get. Of course, the minute he left number 10, he went on and made... How many millions did he make in the first 6 months?
Yeah, by touring, giving talks and
so they make their
writing.
money... It's like presidents of the United States. They make their money afterwards.
Yeah,
There's hope for us all then, Stephen.
There is hope. Well, yeah, possibly.
Should we talk about Manky Panky?
Yes, what's Mancy Panky?
Oh, well...
Was it Mancy Panky? Or Manky?
Manky Panky. I'm so glad
Is it
you
not
asked.
Hanky Panky?
It's one of those tabloid headlines, yeah. It's meant to be hanky-panky, but done manky-panky.
Oh, what? Is it something to do with Manchester?
It is. Well done,
you
you've spotted it there. Manchester rain could be an aphrodisiac. There's something you was shocked to learn, as it is the UK's top city for outdoor romps.
Oh.
Now, the thing with this list is the top 10 of al fresco sex, and...
It's 8 minutes to 8 in the morning, Dawn.
Well, which is probably when a lot of people are...
Yes,
having,
all right.
Having grown-up cuddles, not outdoors, obviously. But the top 3 are all... Well, the top 2 are certainly Manchester and Glasgow. It's cold in both of those places.
So we're thinking that it's because they're cold
that
they're going for outdoor hanky-panky.
Stay indoors.
It might
Call me old school, but...
No, they've gone out. They forgot to put enough clothes on. They just need a cuddle to stay warm.
Yeah, 1 in 8 locals, around 12%, claim they have enjoyed al fresco manky-panky.
12 quite high numbers, isn't it? 12%. Yeah. I thought that would be a story about lunch. I just saw the word al fresco.
Right, okay,
story.
They're probably hungry after.
Spots for lunch.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, you could be hungry
I don't know
after.
where to take that to keep this going for the next minute.
Oh, I could think of a few suggestions, but if you say it's not even the 9 a.m. watershed, let alone the 9 o'clock one, yeah.
No, dear me.
It's
dear
just
me.
a fun survey, I mean.
It's a fun survey.
And does anyone ever tell the truth about that subject?
I was going to say...
I don't think I'd brag about having outdoor hanky-panky. I like my comforts.
Yeah, I mean, you know, central heating, you know, for a start.
Yeah. What do you make of Luke Littler last night? Let's talk about that for
well
a
recovered.
few seconds.
I didn't watch it, I have to confess.
Were you in bed?
Yes,
Were you early
not
start?
having hanky-panky or anything.
No,
I was
but
asleep.
Can't get her away from it.
Dixon.
She's on it's a 16-year-old playing
on the
darts, though.
manky-panky.
It's a 16-year-old playing darts. Yeah, no, look, it's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I can't believe he's 16, though. Can you? I mean, it's...
Oh, I just love his attitude. He's so relaxed about everything. Renee,
It's
did you
good.
catch any of it?
I didn't catch any of it, but I do think it's inspirational when we see young people actually focusing on something and really going for a goal.
And raw talent.
Yeah, raw talent. I'd much rather see young people doing this kind of thing than being out on the streets getting in trouble.
Quite right, too. We'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next hour. Time for the weather with Alex.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England, perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again, the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coasts. But for many, Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
On the doctors' strike, Mark has been in touch saying any doctor or NHS worker who strikes should be sacked for gross misconduct. Parliament should make it illegal for any worker of the NHS to strike. Love to know what you think about that one. gbviews@gbnews.com.
And still to come, 1 year on from Rishi Sunak's 5 key pledges. Today, he's going to be outlining his plans for 2024. This is Breakfast on GB News with me and Stephen.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. 8 o'clock, Thursday, the 4th of January. Today, tax cuts, new Prime Minister, perhaps even a Farage comeback. We'll take a look at the pledges so far as this election year gets serious.
Yes, Keir Starmer might be 18 points ahead in the polls, but he's got his own problems to contend with as he lays out his plan for Britain this morning. Find out more with me very soon.
High-profile figures have been named in newly released US court documents detailing connections with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Neither Prince Andrew and former President Bill Clinton are among those named. Neither of those are accused of any wrongdoing.
Teen sensation Luke Littler has had an incredible journey at the World Darts Championship. Didn't end the way he would like, but Paul Coyte's got all the reaction.
Yes, Luke Litterer. He was the one who was throwing his he was the one who was throwing his rubbish everywhere. That's his friend.
Get off.
Luke Litterer, 16 years old. I've got nothing else to add apart from the fact that what a fantastic player. Didn't win the world title, but that's down to Luke Humphries. So many congratulations to him.
Good fallout with you.
Or throwing literature, perhaps.
Luke Literature, he's very clever.
He's very clever.
Good fallout with you as well.
Now, why have a record number of sellers put their houses on the market? As banks continue to reduce their mortgage interest rates, we ask, is it all good news?
And Alex Deakin has your weather forecast.
Drier, calmer, colder weather on the way for all of us over the next few days. But today, there is more heavy rain to tell you about across the far south. I'll have a full forecast later on.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
We were talking earlier on about best places to live. It's all about value for money, quality of life, work-life balance, all that sort of thing. We're sort of saying London isn't on that list, and we're also saying, well, it's not a very friendly place. But Maggie has been in touch, says, I'm a proud northerner who's lived in London for nearly 50 years. I found nothing but friendliness in this city. And where do you come from is asked out of genuine interest. But I made the cardinal sin of marrying a softy southerner.
Oh.
My husband was a kind gentleman with a rather posh voice. If he opened his mouth to speak on our visits to Merseyside, he was met with hostility and sneers. Time to prick the bubble of this little fantasy.
Do you find that, people? Not very nice to southerners?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there was someone I knew when I was still living up north when I was a teenager. She married a southerner, and when he come down the local where I worked, and said, may I have half a pint of lager, whatever, and everyone was just looking at him like he was from another planet.
Oh.
Yeah, there is definitely something against southerners up north.
Yeah, seen as soft, I think.
Yeah, seen as soft, but then come down here, we're all seen as thick. People think we're stupid.
You think?
Yeah, people think you're stupid if you're a northerner.
I see northerners as friendly.
Well, you can't say anything but that now.
Yeah, my mother's northern as well, so I definitely think and Lee, other side of the coin, lived in Salford all my life, 53 now. It's a dump with high crime rates, he says. And Salford was on the list of all the good places to live.
But Salford's had a regeneration, isn't it? There's Media City there
pretty
now and all the rest of it. Oh, last time I was in Salford, I thought it was quite nice.
But
I do think you fall out of love with places the longer you live there. A little bit.
Do you think?
A little bit. There you go.
No, but Leeds was on the list. What else was there? Newcastle,
Dumfries, I think was Dumfries.
Yeah, and Milton Keynes made the list as well.
Milton Keynes was number 10.
And Chelmsford as well, my birthplace. That was a southern place.
That is a southern place.
Yes.
It's in Essex.
And that's on the list.
It's Essex,
That sounds Safa.
It sounds what?
Safa.
Safa, what's Safa?
South African. Yes.
Oh.
Essex.
Essex.
Yes, but that's because we're very friendly as well.
You are.
Yeah, and that's why we get along.
You Essex lot.
Yeah.
You're very nice.
But let us know what you think. Is your city the best place to live and why? gbnews@gbnews.com.
Of course, Essex was the home of Mondeo Man, wasn't it?
Yes.
You're looking at me blankly. That was back in 1997.
Yeah.
And when it was when Labour came into power, and it was the big political campaigning was all to win over what they called Mondeo Man.
And was this white stilettos?
No. But people who owned a Mondeo car, a Ford Mondeo, which was like your sort of standard middle of the range centre ground car. And so the battle was all about that centre ground and Mondeo Man.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, showing my age.
Lived in Essex.
And we've just mentioned that is because, of course, we are in a general election year now. We have been told it will happen this year. Quite when, we don't know. But the campaign is getting underway. So either which way, even if it's in May, it's still going to be long.
Yes, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are set to launch their bids to convince the public to back them in the contest for number 10.
They're giving their first speeches or chats in the PM's case later on today. And if those are the Lib Dems and Reform UK yesterday are anything to go by, well, the gloves are off.
24, the year the voters finally get to pack up this awful, out-of-touch Conservative government, throw their disastrous policies into the skip.
Starmageddon is a risk near you in 2024. Prime Minister, you're not allowed to continue to run the country. You have failed. The Tories have become like the Labour Party, two sides of the same socialist coin.
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Olivia Utley in Westminster for us. Very good morning to you, Olivia. So we heard there from Sured Davey and Richard Tice, and today we're going to hear from Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer. Let's start with Sir Keir Starmer, shall we? And what will he be offering to the British public?
Well, I think the big problem that Keir Starmer is going to face at the next general election, and he is very well aware of this, is voter apathy. There isn't really a danger for Starmer that there's going to be a huge swell of support for the Conservatives. Starmer's already 18 points ahead in the polls. But what Starmer is worried about, and you can see this in the trail that we've seen of his speech, is that come election day, people just won't bother to go out and vote, because after 14 years of having the same government and of the news cycle just going round and round, strikes one year, strikes the next year, they feel that there's nothing that can really be done, that change can't happen. So I think the message of Keir Starmer's speech today isn't going to be sort of the nitty-gritty of policy offerings. It's going to be a sort of stirring address to the nation, telling people that things can change and that they should, this is a quote from it, hold on to a flicker of hope. So that's what we're expecting to see from Starmer today. Not Starmer, the sensible businessman, not Starmer, the sort of statesman, but Starmer, the man who can stir things up, who can make a big difference, who has a vision for the nation. Really, we're expecting to see something like the Tony Blair that we saw in 1997, someone promising a new dawn for the country, because so far that's sort of what we've lacked from the Labour leader. He's shown how he can be not the Conservative Party. Up until pretty much now, almost everything that he said is about how the Conservatives are implementing their programme badly, and Starmer would practically be able to do things better. He hasn't been very ideological. It's all been about how the Conservatives have messed things up and it's Labour's turn to have a go. Today we'll see something a bit more stirring, but also we'll expect him to talk about the economy. Traditionally, Labour is on tough ground when talking about the economy. The Conservatives are seen to be the party of sound money, the party of business. Keir Starmer wants to turn all of that around, and today he'll be saying that he wants to see, election fought on the economy. He wants to have that fight with the Conservatives. Will the public believe that he has what it takes? We'll have to wait and find out.
We will indeed. Olivia, thanks very much indeed. If you've got a thought on that, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, nearly 200 names associated with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released to the public by a judge in New York.
Yeah, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson amongst those listed, Stephen Hawking as well. Though the former US president hasn't been accused of anything illegal, lawyers for Prince Andrew have previously denied any claims of wrongdoing.
Well, the disclosures throw new light on the sex trafficking network directed by Epstein, who died in 2019, and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Well, earlier we spoke to royal correspondent Richard Fitzwilliam.
Regarding Prince Andrew, it was known, of course, that he was likely to be listed, but most specifically, and these documents are from a case brought by Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who was Prince Andrew's accuser, against Ghislaine Maxwell, that was settled in 2017. They contain some bizarre allegations referencing Joanna Schoberg, who was one of Epstein's victims, and a spitting image latex puppet in 2001 in Epstein's home. I mean, there is, of course, as you're showing, the photograph that Prince Andrew, who denies any wrongdoing, has never been able to explain away. And there's no doubt that this friendship with Epstein, which was an absolute catastrophe, cost him his job as special trade envoy, his 230 patronages, his ability to use his HRH, and he has no part in official royal duties, nor is likely to. In this case of riding it out, what it is constantly reported Prince Andrew wishes to do, he settled an out-of-court case with Virginia Roberts-Giuffre in February 2022 for a reported £12 million. Now, there is no further case against him. Equally, he has not, so far as we're aware, cooperated with the FBI to attempt to trace some of Epstein's accomplices, and this was something that he said he would do in that car crash interview that has become so infamous, and indeed people will be reminded of that with two television films being released with reference to this, which depict it. There's no doubt that he's in limbo. If he were able to carve out some sort of future in a different area, for example, running the royal estates or a role of that sort, that would be one thing. We have constant reports that he has hopes of some form of rehabilitation.
It's 12 minutes past 8. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into our newsroom for you this morning. And a 49-year-old man has been arrested in connection with reports of shots being fired at 3 locations in Liverpool last night. People were told to stay indoors. A major incident declared at a cinema where staff claim they were threatened by a man with a gun.
Nottinghamshire's NHS has declared a critical incident just 2 days into strike action by junior doctors. Bosses said the city and the county's hospitals were under extreme pressure and patients were facing long delays for treatment. 6 days of industrial action began this week after talks between the government and the British Medical Association broke down.
And the Princess Royal is to make an official visit to Sri Lanka next week after marking 75 years of diplomacy with Britain. Princess Anne will be joined by her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence, on the 3-day visit. Comes as the King and Queen are expected to journey to Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Samoa.
Had a very regal tone there. The Princess Royal.
Did I?
Yeah, it was very nice.
Oh, well,
nice
it was...
touched her.
It's because I was preparing for Vice Admiral, you see, not her husband, Vince, that you said. Princess Anne and her husband, Vince.
I don't know how to go back again. I know that doesn't sound quite right.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm glad you managed it.
Working with you is going to be a disaster, you know that. Every Thursday. It's going to be a
Anne
nightmare.
and her husband Vince. Anyway. Right.
Dear me. I have a lot of respect for the Princess Royal.
Me too. The hardest working royal.
Yeah. She's no nonsense lady, but I sort of like that. She just gets on with it.
Yeah. And I think she's good for Charles as well, isn't she?
Yeah, but she's hugely supportive. Yeah, hugely supportive. Yeah, good on her.
Yeah, we like her a lot. I was very impressed with her at the coronation. On horseback.
Yeah, well, she's a very good horsewoman.
Yeah, leading by example. Yeah. Very, very good. Let us know what you think of the Princess Royal. We are big fans here. GB Views at gbnews.com. I'm not over Vince.
Oh, Lord.
Dear.
Oh,
right, so we talk about Boxing Day and houses.
Yes, because Boxing Day has a whole new meaning. Well, that might be over-egging the pudding a little bit. But anyway, this Boxing Day, a record... Get yourself together, girl. Come on. A record number of people put their homes on the market on Boxing Day, St Stephen's Day. Even.
Yes, very well said. Well, over 10,000 properties came on the market on Rightmove. That is the largest number of new sellers in any single day since 2011. And this comes as HSBC has become the first major high street lender to offer a mortgage deal with a rate below 4%.
It's a good number. Let's talk to our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley, who's in Huddersfield. Morning, Anna.
Good morning. Love how happy you both are this morning. Lovely to hear, and I hope you're both doing well. But yes, good news for the property market in terms of Boxing Day. Rightmove saying there that the number of properties put up for sale on December the 26th were the highest it's recorded for Boxing Day, and it's further signs that people may be preparing for a move in early 2024. On top of that, Rightmove also said the number of people contacting estate agents like the one we're at this morning to value their home between Boxing Day and New Year's Day was the highest number recorded in a week since early September. So potential signs of growth here in the property market, showing that there's a group of sellers motivated to move that were perhaps now feeling more confident in the market. And this increase in homes being put up for sale may also be linked to more favourable mortgage rates. You mentioned that HSBC today is releasing a new deal offering a 5 fixed year term of 3.94% for remortgage customers borrowing up to 60% of their property value. But it may not all be good news. And when we often put houses up for sale, it's because you're looking for a larger property. Perhaps you've not got a garden, say, and you move and you want a garden and a drive. It's to upscale. But we may need to think about it in a different way with the cost of living. Many families may be struggling at the moment, especially Christmas. It's a very expensive time of year for many, and people may be putting their homes up for sale because they just simply cannot afford their mortgage repayments anymore, and they in fact may be selling to downgrade their properties to a smaller property so that they can get a more affordable mortgage. So that is worth bearing in mind. We're in Huddersfield this morning though with some more positive news, because it's actually bucked the trend in terms of on a national scale in seeing property prices rise. We've seen property prices decreasing as a whole, but here actually in Halifax, in Huddersfield, according to the Halifax House Price Trends report, homes in this West Yorkshire town went for 8.7% more than across the UK, meaning in Huddersfield the average home now costs £22,000 more than it did a year ago. So that average house price has gone from £253,000 to £275,000. No clear reasons has actually been given as to why Huddersfield has booked this trend and why prices have increased the most here, but the director of Halifax Mortgages, Kim Kinnard, said that house prices can be swayed by many factors such as the number of homes for sale, the local job market and the kinds of services on offer like public transport, schools and universities. Huddersfield is the UK's 11th largest town. It has got a university here. It's known for its industrial heritage, it's known for its art scene, lots of museums here. It's close to the Peak District as well if you want to go have a lovely day out, a lovely walk around the Peak District, and it's great for transport as well. Very close to the M62, so for people commuting to Leeds and Manchester, great spot to live. So Ellie and Stephen, perhaps Huddersfield a place to visit if it's not a place to buy a property, a place for you two to visit.
I'll tell you what, you've sold it to me.
Yeah, me
Anna.
too.
I mean, it's
right
fabulous.
on the M62.
Yeah,
great road.
It's a lovely place. Anna, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Let's talk to property expert Richard Blanco, who joins us now. And I tell you what, I thought Anna outlined it really well, Richard, that we look at these things in a, great, mortgage rates are coming down, more people putting their houses on the market. But actually, you've got to look at first-time buyers. We need more people to get their foot on the ladder, and yet this is all going to mean that prices are going up.
Well, actually, I mean, Huddersfield is bucking the trend at the moment because prices are down 1.8% overall across the UK, according to the latest Halifax figures. So we're also, in fact, expecting prices to fall between about 2 and 5% over 2024. That's the average of what commentators are saying. So, it could get better for first-time buyers over 2024. And certainly it's good news that mortgages are starting to get cheaper because, the last 6 months, certainly July to November, has been a very tricky time really to get a mortgage and to remortgage.
And HSBC, as we heard from Anna there, offering a mortgage rate of under 4%, the first lender to do so. Obviously, lots of people will now be hoping that other lenders start to follow suit.
Yes, and what we're seeing is swap rates have come down quite considerably. These are the rates that fixed rate based on. What remains to be seen is what might happen to bank base rates this year. There's not a lot of transactions going through at the moment, or certainly it's lower than the trend over the last 10 years. So lenders are trying to compete for business, and I think we're probably likely to see some, even better rates over the next few months. But the million-dollar question is, when will the Bank of England bring bank base rate down from 5.25%? Some commentators think that we'll see 2 cuts this year. Some think it might be as many as 4, but the Bank of England is being quite stubborn and suggesting that actually it wants to hold rates at 5.25% for a considerable period.
It makes it very... I mean, look, your heart goes out to those people who fixed their mortgages at a higher rate over the last 6 months or so. But even with these new lower rates coming on, again, people are going to be slightly sceptical, aren't they, as to say, well, I'll tie in at 3.98 or whatever HSBC is offering, when it looks like they could drop even further.
Yeah, it's really tricky to time the market. A lot of people will be wanting to just wait, really, and see if rates get better later this year. The difficulty is that if you're coming off a 2-year or 5-year fix, it's likely that it was something like 2%, because it will have been some time ago when rates were much lower. And do you just hang about on the standard variable rate, which is likely to be 6 or 7%, and wait for lower rates, or do you just take what you can get at the moment? I mean, obviously, the best thing to do is to speak to an FCA-regulated mortgage broker to see what all of your options are. But whether to wait and see is tricky. I would certainly say on 5-year fixes, think long and hard about that, because it's likely that rates will come down in the next couple of years and get cheaper. And whether you'd want to lock in now for 5 years is, a big question.
Yeah, good advice. Property expert there, Richard Blanco. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, sometimes you do get even a better deal, a cheaper deal on the shorter term fixes. I've never understood how that works.
No.
You get your 2-year can be cheaper than your 5-year. I don't know how that works.
No.
But no, consider it carefully.
Yeah, and seek advice.
Now, before my voice goes, let's get a weather update with Alex Deakin.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. Could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coast, but for many Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
Now, here's one for you. How would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers? Well, time is running out, but you could be the very first winner of our Great British giveaway. Here's all the details that you need.
Make sure you don't miss your chance to win 3 brilliant prizes in our Great British giveaway. Prizes which could make your new year start with a bang. There's a totally tax-free £10,000 cash to be won. Cash to spend however you like. What would you do with it? We'll also send you on a New Year shopping spree with £500 of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And if all of that wasn't enough, you'll also get a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB01 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Now, still to come, under a new law, primary school children could be fined up to £500 for antisocial behaviour. We're asking, has the world gone mad, or could it be a good way to instil some discipline? We'll be debating that next. This is GB News Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:30 on the nose. Now, back back to our debate. Should parents be fined for their misbehaving primary school children?
Yes, that's what we're asking this morning, because children as young as 10 years old could now be fined for playing outside with their friends.
Yeah, well, I suppose the argument is that
Well,
it's
being
not
naughty.
playing, being naughty. Well, it's under a new law, the successor to the ASBO, which is designed to fine and therefore prevent antisocial behaviour.
But this means parents of primary school children could be forced to pay £500 fine. So we're asking, should it really be the parents' responsibility? And isn't this kids just being kids? Well, let's speak now to our guests. Joining us in this debate is Julie Cook, the journalist, and TikTok influencer Euphemia Moore. Very good to see you both this morning. And Euphemia, let's start with you, shall we? And you think this is actually quite a good idea?
No, sorry, my stance is against it.
OK, tell us why.
Sorry. OK, so my stance is that with anything that comes at the cost of a fine, but it's evidence that it's only to penalise a certain demographic of people. At the end of the day, fines do not affect the rich because they can afford to pay them. It's only going to affect the poor. And at the end, the only way to really show change is by education rather than trying to penalise people because they cannot afford to pay a fine.
But how then, Euphemia, do you affect and challenge bad behaviour, antisocial behaviour by youngsters? If the parents aren't keeping their children under control, how then do you have that sort of influence if you can't use a fine?
Well, as I said, I think the solution should be to educate rather than to penalise. Over the last 20 years or so, the government has done its best to restrict the amount of rights the parent has in the home, to the point where now we are even fearful to necessarily put our children out in the streets because of what can happen to them there. And, you know, there are so many things that we do now to keep our children distracted or keep them, you know, entertained, that contain things that are going to also hinder them. We need to educate them on the impact of LED lights. They are in all of the devices that we use, in the schools, in our homes. These things have a really tumultuous effect on children's cognitive behaviour, especially those that suffer with autism, which again is not a surprise that there is an increase in the amount of children that do suffer with autism, ADHD, all of these things that are affected by the stimulation and overexposure of LED lights. These are things that have been brought in that haven't been fully shown what the impact or the long-term effect of these things are on our children. And then to come and say to a certain demographic of people, you are now going to be fined X amount of money because you or your child is suffering from the effects of this impact, is really bad. It's really horrible, to be honest.
OK, let's bring in Julie Cook at this point. Julie, what do you make of this? Do you think if there's naughty children, especially under the age of 10, then parents should be fined?
Well, I'm with our other guests. I actually think it's ridiculous as well. So that's my stance. But I think it depends on the severity of the crime, or, you know, the bad behaviour, not crime. For example, I've been reading about this new sort of busybody law, as people are calling it, which even talks about children playing football in the street is antisocial. So children can't win because, you know, on one hand, they're told, get off your devices, get outside like we used to when we were younger. And on the other hand, if they do that, we've become so intolerant of children's behaviour that we then say, well, get back indoors, you're making too much noise. So children can't win if they need exercise. But obviously, if it's terrible antisocial behaviour, abusing the elderly, putting loads of litter outside someone's front door, you know, really extreme things, then yes, I think perhaps it is necessary, but only on the extreme scale of things, not for sort of general kid behaviour.
Yeah, well, look, to be honest, I think you both raised very, very good and valid points there, but we are going to leave it there. Julie, Euphemia, thanks very much indeed. Let us know what you think, gbviews@gbnews.com. You've got to let kids be kids, and you've got to let kids play outside and all the rest of it, and sometimes they will be a nuisance, but that's being kids. But anyway, I'm sure you've got a view. talking of children...
I knew you were going to say that.
That was good, very good.
I knew that was going to happen. Paul was talking about me.
No, not about you.
Okay.
Paul Coit is here. No, you're a big kid. But an actual... I mean, I hate to say it, because he'd hate it if he was listening, but Luke Littler, at 16...
He's a child.
He's a child, and yet he's... I mean, he might not have won last night, but blooming heck, he did well.
Yeah, the World Darts Championship at Alexandra Palace. So it's been a fantastic 3 weeks, and darts has just gone through the roof. It's making the front page of the newspapers today, and this is all down to young Luke. 7-4 he lost. A lot of people... I mean, he was the favourite to win the final, although the winner eventually, Luke Humphries, was originally at the start of the competition the favourite to win. So he came through 7-4. It was a fantastic game of darts. And we do have a guest. I think before we do, it'd be good to hear from Luke Humphries, because I feel almost like Luke Humphries is being ignored, and he's the world champion. So let's hear what Luke Humphries had to say after the win last night.
Going to be such an uphill task. It was going to be so hard for me. And then when I went to the, I went to the break 4-3, and I still believed the dream was alive. And then from that moment, I just seemed to be on it. I started playing really, really well. I can't lie, I'm absolutely drained, so tired. You know, any more sets on top of that would have been really, really tough for me. But you know, we all have to give credit to Luke, because he showed that. He showed incredible grit, incredible determination. You know, that we will never ever see the likes of him again at that age, to go up on that world stage and you know, in a world final, to produce them darts. And I was putting him under so much pressure. You know, I loved the kid to bits.
That's the thing, he did. He put him under so much pressure, and it was almost like the 16-year-old didn't feel it. It was just like he just ran off him and just continued to play brilliantly. He's going to win. He's going to win the World Championship. And as I said to you earlier, I think it's almost the best thing that he didn't win it this year, because of all the pressure that's going to come from around.
Immense,
I think so. But let's hear what Luke Littler had to say after the final.
It's been unbelievable. Like I've said, I just wanted to win one game, come back after Christmas, and that was it. That's the only goals I set, so this is just a massive bonus. No one likes losing, and I've not really lost much, but to lose on that stage, you can't be angry at yourself. The only thing I was angry with was I was losing a lot of legs with my throw, so then Luke could break, hold, and I'd just be chasing every set, really. It's just unbelievable. I hope I've captured loads of young people's minds to get on the board and just try it out, and if they don't like it, then that's what they want to do. But I'd advise them to try it, because it is a good sport, and once you get into it, you used to always love it. People have told me I've been like the 4th favourite after my first game, but I don't really look at that. Like I've said many times, I've just got to beat what's in front of me.
He's sort of got his head screwed on.
He really has, and he just seems so calm. And it's almost like everything is going on around him. He's just continuing to be brilliant in the middle. We've got someone to speak to, which I think would be great. It's the 3-time world BDO champion, 2-time World Masters champion. He was the 2020 Premier League champion. The Premier Leagues we're hoping we'll see Luke Littler in, and that's Glenn Durrant, who's with us on the phone. Morning, Glenn.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Great to hear from you. So, what has this done for the game of darts? I mean, I don't want to avoid Luke Humphries, but Luke Littler, 16-year-old, everybody's into the darts. And he's got a lot to answer for this. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, obviously I'm in my 50s now, and, you know, I grew up with a stereotypical dart player, the culture that everyone thought a dart player looked like and what it was all about. And I got my first taste of what the media and the sort of the social media aspect can do when Fallon Sherrock smashed the glass ceiling in 2019, and you know what she did for darts and for women's sport was absolutely sensational. And then up walks a 16-year-old Luke Littler the past couple of weeks, and it's just been unbelievable, and so many positives for the sport that I love.
I know you work with the PDC as well, but it's very good for darts because it has changed that image. I mean, if we look back over the 30 years that the PDC has been around, the whole image has changed, hasn't it? We've looked at Fallon Sherrock coming through, now the kids are coming through, and it's like tennis at Wimbledon. Everybody wants to play.
Darts never recovered from not the 9 o'clock news sketch. It was just something we just couldn't ever get over. I mean, and then, like I said, when Fallon Sherrock come in. But, yeah, we are working so hard behind the scenes as well. And I'm working for the PDPA now, and health and well-being is so important. And that's the story about Luke Humphries. Luke Humphries is a guy who suffered with mental health. He felt he was overweight. He's lost 4.5 stone, and he demonstrated last night all the attributes, all the skills to be a proud world champion and speaks so eloquently well. He's just a tremendous individual and a real credit to our sport.
We really don't want to avoid Luke Humphries, do we? Because it's so easy to talk about Luke Littler. But like you say, without Littler, I mean, it's a fantastic story, Luke Humphries coming through.
It is. It's an incredible story. And Luke Littler will not realise how big it is until he maybe is driving to Warrington today, because, you know, it's just everybody wants a piece of him. And that's the success of Luke Humphries is incredibly the world #1 and won 3 of the last 4 majors going into it, was a little under the radar last night, and I think that really benefited him. But how well did Luke Littler at 16 handle the media? I was in the media room as part of my role on commentating, and he was just so mature. The way he was looking at his family, saying, just calm down when it was in high-pressured, difficult situations. He's been unbelievable.
He's got plenty of time to win that world title, hasn't he? Glenn, pretty good to speak to you. Thanks a lot for your time. Glenn Durrant there, so 2020 Premier League champion, and he's got a long time to go, hasn't he, Littler? Oh. He's got plenty.
Well, that's the thing, the world is his oyster.
It really is. So he's then going to go on now, and he's now part of the top 32 in the world. Well, I mean, you'd really think he was like one of the top 2 or 3 in the world, which he is probably the way he plays.
He's going to be a big celebrity as well, isn't he? He's going to be wanted in all the reality TV shows. I can see it now.
I just hope that he has the right people around him, keeps his head straight, because there's going to be a lot of temptations all around. We're not worried about him.
I'm not worried about him. He's very relaxed, very mature.
Very mature.
He just seemed quite mature.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, good on him. I hope he keeps his head straight. I hope his family keep his feet to the ground, because you don't want to be pulled off in that celeb world, not at that age.
As Casey Kasem once said, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
Exactly.
It's a tip for all of us.
Well said.
Yeah, we've got a lot of reaching to do.
Yes, I know, a lot of reaching. But anyway, hopefully, with Dimitri Van den Berg, who was 2-time youth world champion and just one of the great characters in darts, with us just after 9 o'clock.
Lovely stuff.
It's a good lineup.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
He pulls them out, you know.
He's very good, isn't he? Now, still to come, waking up in the middle of the night could lead to memory problems later in life. Well, that's not good news for us, is it?
It's not.
That's next in Headline Makers. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
8:47, time to go through some of the stories making the headlines today. For the last time with former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the GP, Dr. René Hunderkamp.
Hunderkamp.
Is it Dutch? Well, it sounds Dutch the way I say it. It's fascinating. I love all these sort of weird and wonderful names. Exotic. Anyway, Dawn, let's start with you, should we? Bad sleep in your...
I know.
Bad news for us, yeah.
I don't even need to talk about it. Just look here, OK? Right. Basically, bad sleep in your 30s could give you memory troubles in later life. But tell me something I don't know. And what they've done is, it's a survey that was carried out in Canada, and they put wrist trackers to measure how much you move during the day and also at night, so how much proper sleep you got. And waking up through the night, even in early middle age, i.e. your mid to late 30s, if you're more restless, your memory is worse. You don't do as well in tests later on in life, you know, the cognitive test where you sort of like, you know, you're asked to remember. You know those cards to show you can remember all the vegetables on this page, and you take the card away and you go, no, I'm sure there was a carrot, and it's like, and you fell. Bad sleep is not good for you. I didn't need to read that out, just look, it's obvious.
Oh, stop. It's amazing.
So sleep as a GP is obviously something I get people consulting about all of the time because they get very, very distressed by it. And I try very hard to make people understand that all sleep is psychological. And you have to do the right things to get a good night's sleep. And it's all of those really boring things like no screens for a couple of hours before you sleep, have a very dark, cold room. You don't want to be...
Cold?
You need a cool room, you need to be warm under your duvet, you need no stimulants, caffeine, you know, within a few hours of going to bed. Exercise, but not too close to bed. All of those things. It's called sleep hygiene, because sleeping tablets, and I think this is the important thing from this story, have also been linked to dementia and poor memory later in life.
Oh,
so the solution is not tablets.
It's screwed.
Sleep.
Then I am screwed. I pop those.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
When you have your nap?
On non-working days, because I get a sort of hangover with them. But
you have to switch your body clock
on days when I'm not working and I need to catch up on sleep, I'll pop up with them. Only the over-the-counter ones, nothing stronger.
I think the problem when you've got, not just with our jobs, but when you're doing any shift work, and it changes around, it's so bad for you, isn't it, Rennie? It's bad for mental and physical health.
Bad for you. So switching when you have to sleep is shown to be really bad for you. Shift workers definitely do you know, a lot worse. But I also think, the other thing I think about this story is every day there is something in the press, be it hazelnuts through to sleep, that's going to give you dementia or heart disease. And I think, you know, can we just take a step back? Let's try and just live healthy lives. Moderation on everything, even moderation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking of well, it's a weird sort of moderation. We should be driving about, according to This Is in the Eye, by filling our cars with whiskey or something similar.
This is actually a really interesting story because...
Smell good.
Yeah,
exhaust fumes would be fantastic.
So they're actually making green hydrogen from polluted water from distilleries. Now, there are 1 billion litres of distilled outlet every year. So this is a big thing that they can do, because at the moment they're using 20 billion litres of fresh water to make green hydrogen. And obviously water is in short supply. Water will be the next oil. So if we can actually make it from something that's a waste product, I'm all for it. And they can fuel cars by it, and we can all just be a little bit kinder to the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
I think it's a really good idea.
King Charles infamously runs one of his vintage Mercedes, Jaguars, whatever it is, on wine and cheese, doesn't he?
Yeah, while he's driving.
Oh,
I don't know how it works, don't explain me to me.
Maybe
It's one of those useless facts that my sleep-deprived memory retained.
But it's a bit like when you
useless.
see, when I drive down the motorway every day, that you see these the McDonald's vans that say, you know, we are powered by used oil from McDonald's that they filter and make it into biofuel.
Yeah, so I'm all for if we can actually do things that just recycle things and use them again. Brilliant.
Why not?
And stuff that just go to waste anyway.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
like oil. Exactly. Dawn, should we talk about Elvis?
Yes,
Shall
we all like this story, don't we? You ain't nothing but an avatar. Elvis is to play London at last. Infamously never played a concert in the United Kingdom, but the creators of a new immersive Elvis Presley concert are hoping to hold performances starting next year, hopefully, using AI and holographic projection. Elvis Evolution will bring the King back to life, a bit like ABBA Voyage, which I think most people here have been to see, haven't they?
I'm going this weekend.
Have you not seen? Oh, right, OK.
Do you know what I'd want to do? If I was turning 64, that's exactly what I'd want to do on Sunday.
Would you?
Right, OK.
I'm taking my mother.
Oh, OK.
Happy
So,
birthday,
she'll
Jo.
enjoy it. Happy birthday.
She's very excited.
I absolutely didn't want to see this ABBA. I thought it was a ridiculous idea, paying to go and see holograms. I really did. And I was dragged along there in a group of people. We were in the dancing area, which I didn't want to do either, because I like a seat when I go to a concert.
Oh, yeah, we're in that section as well.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's not too cramped. I was blown away. My mind was blown by it. It was that good that I then went again and took my 5-year-old and my 79-year-old mother.
Oh.
She's 80 now, but if I say that, she'll correct me. And
Do you actually think... Is it like they're there?
It really is.
Yeah.
It is incredible. So I think this, for Elvis, who I believe was the most beautiful man that ever lived, will be stunning. I can't wait to see it.
And such a showman as well. I mean, if they can get that across in a hologram.
The difference is with ABBA Voyage, ABBA are still alive, and they did put them in body motion imaging capture suits, didn't they, and filmed them.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Elvis, obviously, so I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it, but I'm sure my mum, who is his biggest fan, probably after your mum, Renee, will be first in the queue.
This is AI that I approve of.
Yeah.
I do think it is absolutely fascinating how they do it, and I quite want to see the ABBA one. I'm not a huge fan of Elvis, I've got to be honest, but...
What was your song? Your Elvis song?
I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. Elvis Presley. It's a great one.
Why is that? Is that because David in Porchester says, is that an engagement ring I spot on Ellie's left hand? Not seen it before. Yes, I popped the question.
Yeah.
She said yes.
Tannock's falling.
So there you go, yes. We're very, very happy. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, both of you. Let's get the weather, shall we?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. We could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coast, but for many Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it is an election year that we are now in, and that means a lot of campaigning. It could be in May. That's still a long time off. Could be the end of the year. The campaigning is underway now, pretty much. We're going to be talking to the Labour Party in just a couple of minutes to find out what Keir Starmer's going to unveil later on today.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Carson, this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock, Thursday the 4th of January, and these are the stories we've been reporting on this morning.
The election starting gun has been fired already. Talk of tax cuts, maybe a new Prime Minister and a Farage comeback.
Yes, Keir Starmer might be 18 points ahead in the polls, but he does have some problems to contend with over a long general election campaign. Find out more with me very soon.
High-profile figures are named in newly released US court documents detailing connections with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Neither Prince Andrew and former President Bill Clinton amongst those named, neither accused of any wrongdoing.
And it's the end of the fairy tale for teen dart sensation Luke Littler.
Very well.
Who lost the World Darts Championship to Luke Humphries last night. Paul Coit has got all the reaction for us.
What's going on there?
I don't know, makes sense.
It's the end of the fairy tale.
It is the end of the fairy tale. Well, it's just the beginning of the fairy tale, I think,
very
for
good.
Luke Littler. I do. He's only 16 years old, second in the World Darts Championship, and he played fantastically well. But Luke Humphries is the new world champion.
Yes, and well done to him.
Yes.
A record number of sellers have put their houses on the market. Banks continue, this is a good news, to reduce their mortgage interest rates as well.
Plus, we're going to cross to Liverpool to get the latest on reports overnight of shots fired at the Showcase Cinema.
And we'll get your forecast with Alex Deakin.
Drier, calmer, colder weather on the way for all of us over the next few days. But today, there is more heavy rain to tell you about across the far south. I'll have a full forecast later on.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
All right, politics. I'm afraid you're going to have to get used to talking about politics this year. It is a big election year. And already, we don't know when the election is, could be 10 months off yet, but already the campaigning is getting serious.
Yes, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are set to launch their bids to convince the public to back them in the contest for number 10 today.
They're going to be giving their first speeches of the year later on, and if those yesterday of the Lib Dems and Reform UK are anything to go by, it would seem the gloves are off.
2024, the year the voters finally get to pack up this awful, out-of-touch Conservative government. Throw their disastrous policies into the skip.
Starmageddon is a risk near you in 2024. Prime Minister, you're not allowed to continue to run the country. You have failed. The Tories have become like the Labour Party, two sides of the same socialist coin.
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who is live for us in Westminster. Very good morning to you, Olivia. And we are expecting to hear from Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak a little bit later on today. What are we hoping to hear? What are we expecting to hear from Rishi Sunak?
Well, Rishi Sunak's job really is to try and persuade both his MPs and the voting public more generally that he is the best man for the job. That is an uphill battle. We think that the tack he's going to go for is essentially say, well, this is the job I've started, I should be the person to finish it. I am making progress. Progress might not be quite as fast as some people were hoping, but on those 5 pledges that he laid out actually on this day in 2023, there is some evidence that progress is being made. The boats might not be stopped. The Rwanda policy is obviously snagging a little bit in the House of Commons, to put it mildly, but actually boat crossings were down down 30% 2023 compared with 2022. So we can claim that progress is being made there. The economy, he has managed to halve inflation. That was his goal for 2023, and he did achieve it. That's probably his easiest win. As for growing the economy, well, the OBR says that it's not going to grow yet, but it should grow in the latter half of this decade. And that is exactly the sort of message that Rishi Sunak is going to cling on to. He's essentially going to say, OK, well, the Tories might have been in power for a long time, but I've only been here for just over a year, and I have been making some progress. As I say, though, that is going to be an uphill battle. In the next few weeks, he's going to have to deal with the fallout, the delayed fallout from the Rwanda bill. That's going to be reaching its third stage and report stage in the House of Commons at the end of this month. And you'll remember at the end of the last parliamentary term, before we broke up for Christmas, there was this ongoing row between the left and the right of the Conservative Party. The left of the party felt that the bill didn't go far enough. The left party felt that the bill went too far. The right felt that it didn't go far enough. Those are the sort of issues that Rishi Sunak is going to have to contend with. So what we're expecting to hear from him is essentially, well, just let me have a go. I started, I want to finish.
OK, Olivia Utley there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's talk now to Pat McFadden from the Labour Party, who joins us from Westminster as well. Good to see you, as always, Pat. Look, I'm just reading through what Keir Starmer's going to be saying later on today. It's all mood music. That's the problem, isn't it? It's all, well, we need change, we can bring change, but there's nothing concrete in here.
Well, let me go through some of the policies he refers to in the speech that you've got in front of you. He's going to talk about halving violence against women and girls. He's going to talk about setting up a publicly owned energy company, GB Energy, to drive the energy transition that we need. He's going to be talking about our plan for 2 million more hospital procedures. He's going to be talking about our plan for more neighbourhood policing paid for through savings on procurement. He's going to be talking about our plan for a better deal for working people through ending 0 hours contracts and this policy of fire and rehire that some employers have organised. So there's plenty of policy meat in this speech, but the big message is people won't get this change unless they vote for it. And in this election year, there's a really important underlying theme, which is the power doesn't rest in the hands of the politicians or the civil servants or the media, really. It rests in the hands of the voters. And that is a humbling and awesome thing. And that's at the heart of the speech that he's making today. If people want change, they have to vote for it.
Also, but what are they voting for? Because this is what he also says. We are a changed Labour Party, no longer enthralled to gesture politics, no longer a party of protest, but a party of service. Well, how do we know that?
Well, I think through the changes he's made in the 4 years that he's become leader, and it's not just a change of policy or a rule change here or there, it's a real change in Labour's job description. What he's saying there is that we'd become too interested in ourselves in the past and forgetting the first duty of service to the public, and that's at the heart of his leadership. So the Labour Party's job is to serve the public. It's clause 1 of our constitution. We lost sight of that for a while. We've rediscovered our true job description under Keir Starmer's leadership. So the point about a changed Labour Party is really important when it comes to the election, whenever that comes.
I mean, on that point, the starting gun has been fired on election year, but we don't know when the general election is actually going to be. It could be 10, 11 months away. Are you concerned about voter apathy? How are you going to keep the momentum going for the next potentially 10 or 11 months? How are you going to get people to the polls, and how are you going to get people excited about the Labour Party?
Well, I don't think there's any point in 5 more months of the Tories, let alone 5 more years. But I don't have the power to set the date for the election. I think the Prime Minister's sitting there in Downing Street hoping that something will turn up, something will change the fortunes of the Conservative Party. My job as Labour's election coordinator is to make sure that we are ready whenever the starting gun really is fired. You're right, the starting gun on the long campaign, as we'd call it, has already been fired. The date is yet to be determined. But that second thing that you said there about motivating people is really important, because I think there is a mood that you know, nothing can change, that this is as good as it can get. We don't believe that. We believe the country can change. We're ambitious for Britain. That's why I went through that policy list that I did at the start of the interview. None of these things are going to come from the Conservatives. People will only get them from a change of government, and that will only happen if people go and vote for it, and that's going to be a continued theme throughout the year.
Oh, do you know, I thought you were going to burst into things can only get better there, Pat, from what you were saying. Really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Now, an update now on a developing story. A 49-year-old man has been arrested in connection with reports of shots being fired at 3 locations in Liverpool last night.
Let's head to our reporter in Liverpool, Jack Carson. What's the latest, Jack?
Yeah, good morning to you both. Around 4:46 this morning, Merseyside police confirmed that they had arrested with armed officers a 49-year-old man on suspicion of possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life and robbery. He's currently in custody at a Merseyside police station, of course. Those reports of 3 shots last night came in first around 8 o'clock when it was reported a man had entered a newsagent and shot at a member of staff there, and of course then further reports that there were shots from a car park here at the Showcase Cinema in Croxteth. Now, it was later confirmed there were also shots around 10:20 p.m. at Malpass Road, and the Merseyside police saying that the shocking, distressing impact that these incidents have had on, of course, all of the staff at the Showcase Cinema, and also the, of course, shop owners who found themselves, of course, in that situation, as well as, of course, the people who were locked down in this cinema last night as the police went around their investigations, of course, trying to arrest this man. But as I said, confirmed at 4:46 this morning, that man was arrested and is now in police custody.
Okay, Jack, thank you.
Now, Britain's newsroom is coming up at 9:30, and Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner are here to tell us all about it. Morning, you two.
Morning. Nice to see you together.
Good to see you two.
On a Thursday. It's a bit strange, isn't it? We better get used to it. Guess who we've got on the show today?
Big scoop.
Luke Humphries.
Yes, I knew there was going to be one of them.
Yes,
exactly.
the
and
winner.
I'm glad we've got the winner, because
Yeah.
so little is known about him, and I rather feel sorry for him because he's almost been cast as a pantomime baddie. Because
He's been booed last time.
I know, and that's so unsporting.
He had to walk out to a booing crowd on his World Championship final debut. And you could even see in his face, he was like, oh, wow, they really are booing me. And it was really awful. It was a terrible kind of reflection of some of the people in that crowd, I have to say. They did warm to him a bit by the end.
But he's done well, hasn't he? He's 28, he's the world champion. And
he's young himself, isn't he?
Exactly. And he's a lad who's had all sorts of issues. He's lost about 4 stone in weight, I think, over the years.
Yeah, said that earlier.
Yeah,
and he
lost
said,
a lot of weight. Yeah. And of course, 16-year-old Luke, who didn't win, he's going to have to lose a bit of weight at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well,
Andrew.
Is.
I mean, look, I think well, I don't quite know how to follow that, but I think
true. I've seen the photos.
It's not terribly good for his health, probably in the long run. This is true, but he's a 16-year-old boy. We have to remember that he's a 16-year-old boy. He's got the eyes of this country, if not the world, on him now. And you know, I just hope he's okay. Like, I hope Luke Littler, despite all of this pressure, will be okay going forward. I'm sure he probably will. He did walk away with £200,000 last night. Let's remember.
Doing all right.
And he's a marketing man, a woman's dream, isn't he? Because he's very articulate.
He is.
Really articulate, considering he's not even 17. He's not even old enough to buy a pint in a pub. It's incredible,
Except
isn't it?
Except that his girlfriend's 21, and I was thinking last night, he can have a drink in the pub as long as he's with his girlfriend, because she's old enough to be his kind of person. If you're 21, you know, you're 17, you can't drink in the pub, but you can if you've got an adult with you.
It would not be a bad thing that he didn't win, because he's got plenty of time ahead of him, hasn't he? And you don't want it to think it all goes to his head too young, too soon. So that'll be an interesting conversation with the other Luke.
And we've got Keir Starmer doing a big press conference this morning.
And a speech, and he's going to tell us probably, I think, very little about what an ex-Labour government will do. I think you were very good the way you pressed Pat McFadden there. I mean, is he going to talk about tax levels? Because we saw only this week the Shadow Chancellor talking about, cutting taxes. Which ones are they then? And how are you going to do that? When are they going to spend all this extra money on green policies, 28 billion a year? I suspect a lot of these questions will be unanswered.
Right. Well, they say it's all fully costed, Andrew.
Yeah, well,
we shall find out.
And Ben Habib from Reform Party, who obviously we were told yesterday he's going to be the candidate for Wellingborough. I'm going to talk to Ben about that.
Lovely. You've had your time. Get off.
Sorry.
Hey.
We'll see you at 9:30. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andrew and Bev. Thank you. Now, how would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers? Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. Here are all the details of how you can make those prizes yours.
Time is ticking on your chance to become the very first winner of the Great British Giveaway and grab cash, tech and a ton of treats. There's a stunning £10,000 in tax-free cash. Extra money that could be in your bank to make this year extra special. We'll also give you a tech update with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And finally, we'll treat you to a shopping spree with £500 in vouchers to spend at the store of your choice. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GB-WIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Coming up in just a moment, we're going to be talking to two-time World Youth Champion Dimitri van der Berg.
Great name.
About Luke Humphries and Luke Littler. That's in just a moment.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At 9:19, I'm a little bit torn with the darts. Yeah, I am, because Luke Little has been amazing and everyone's talking about him. They're not talking about Luke Humphries, who actually won. Which seems a bit of a shame, so I'm a bit torn that way. Paul Coyte is here.
Well, I think we've discussed it to say that, you know, Luke Littler has done extremely well, and it's not a bad thing that he's lost because he's got a great future in front of him, whereas Luke Humphries certainly deserves it, and he's the best player on the night. So he's the new world champion. We've got someone that played in the World Championships, and he's one of the best darts players there is in the world at the moment. Two-time youth champion, so he knows what it's like to be a youngster coming through. He's still only young himself now. 2020 World Match Play champion. We're off to Belgium. The legendary Dimitri van den Berg is on the line. Morning, Dimitri.
Good morning, Paul. You know exactly how to bring someone a good feeling, don't you, mate?
Well, listen, talk about good feeling. I've been telling everybody about the intro and when you walk on and the dance, and I think we've got something of that as well. Maybe you could teach young Luke Littler a thing or two about how to make an entrance. Look, we're just going to watch you go on there. Every time, Happy There by Pharrell Williams. Nobody in the darts world moves like you. So what do you think? Give him a bit of advice?
I've got to say that I've got to learn a lot more from Luke than he can learn from me. The only intro Luke Littler needs is just his name. What he just showed in the world, together with Luke Humphries, it's been very inspirational, and I hope I can do something likely like that.
You will, yes.
Can I just ask you, Dimitri, what do you think? We've been sort of saying here, we're sort of quite pleased that Luke Littler didn't win. Only in the sense that he's 16, it will be an awful lot of pressure on him. Do you think there's some validity to that? That actually perhaps he needs a bit more breathing space because of all the pressures that a victory would bring on him?
I don't know. I think that Luke Littler is a kid that just loves to play darts on a constant basis, and that's what I've been told as well, that his parents literally did everything they could to let him go to all tournaments. He's also got himself a really good manager that helped him and the family out in any way possible, so he could go all the way, he could play every tournament. And to be fair, I think, in my personal opinion, that Luke Littler might be the richest 16-year-old that has achieved the money and everything by his own doing, by his own hands, by his own hard work. And he didn't earn it from mommy or daddy. So, honest to God, this 16-year-old kid, what an amazing talent, and what an example to the world that if you believe in yourself, everything is possible.
How do you feel, though, Dimitri, as a competitor, when you see him? There's obviously the part to think, well, this is great for the game, but it's another really good player you've got to beat, isn't it?
Yeah, another hurdle that is going to stand in my way to achieve my own dreams. But you know what? The words Michael van Gerwen likes to say is, if you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And that's what I will definitely be intending to do. But for now, I've got to say that we had a remarkable final once again. Last year it was the two Michaels against each other. Yeah. This year we had the two Lukes against each other. So I hope there's going to be a second Dimitri somewhere in the world for me next year.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think there's another Dimitri anywhere. Did you watch it, though, finally? I mean, is it easy for you to watch, even though you probably went out of the World Championships a little earlier than you would have wanted? Is it easy for you to watch and enjoy the final? Or is it like, well, I want that, or does it inspire you a bit more for next year?
It definitely has inspired me for next year, and to be honest, I've watched everything. I've watched every games. Even when I got out, I was at home and I watched all the games when I was literally at home, if I wasn't out with my own family or doing something. I've also been back on the practice board because I know that I was working hard and I was putting every effort and time in. So I was like, you know what, it might not have happened in this World Championship, but there's the next season, there's the next year, so just continue what I'm doing. And I've literally enjoyed the whole World Championships. There was a lot of upsets happening. A debut 16-year-old kid got to the final. Another debutant another non-seeded player got to the semi-final.
Sure.
Rob Cross done an amazing comeback against Chris Dobie. Like, stuff like that. I've all seen it, and I have to say I've enjoyed the Worlds. We
look forward to the Vandenberg Littler Final 2025. Happy New Year to you, sir. It's great to have you on. We appreciate your time.
Lovely stuff. And Paul, thank you. Thank you very much. He was great, wasn't he? We're back tomorrow morning from 6. But up next, it's Bev and Andrew with Britain's Newsroom.
Good morning. I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. For many, dry and a bright day out there today, but there is going to be some wet weather across the far south, just creeping up through the English Channel. Some uncertainty about how quickly it spreads in and how much rain we see, but because it's likely to fall on very soggy ground, it could cause some issues as it spreads its way across southern counties. There's a Met Office yellow warning in place. A few scattered showers across Scotland, quite windy in the far northeast, but for many elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally dry and bright. We could see 10 Celsius in the south, but it'll feel cooler if this rain does arrive, and then it's likely to linger into this evening over parts of the southeast, perhaps spreading into parts of East Anglia as well. Again, falling onto saturated ground could cause some flooding issues before it scoots away through the early hours. Elsewhere, again, we've still got a few showers over the east of Scotland and the west of Scotland, but for many other areas it's a dry night. Will turn quite cold, a greater chance of seeing a touch of frost, particularly through the Midlands and parts of southern England perhaps as well in rural spots. So a chilly start to Friday, but again, the weather calming down, certainly compared to recent days. Still some wet weather over Aberdeenshire and the Northern Isles, a few showers scattered about around western coast. But for many, Friday also again looking dry and bright and a lot drier across the south coast. But it is going to turn colder, and that's a theme that will continue into the weekend.
Good morning. We are talking to the man who won the darts last night. Did you watch it? Must say, it's the first darts match I've ever watched from start to finish. Luke Humphries is going to be talking to us about his victory. And how did he do that with the crowd very much stacked against him and supporting Luke Littler? That and Keir Starmer trying to win your vote.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news.